the fuck?
Yeah, there it goes live.
Man, I hope that just didn't pick that up. No, it was just
sometimes you get fired up, and you got to use appropriate language to how you're feeling.
Oh, I get very colorful in the language when I hit start stream and it just starts working. And I didn't even really hit the go live button, but
all right, there we go.
All right, everybody, welcome to the 12 Puzzles Podcast, the first podcast of 2025. We're going to be talking about Roanoke Island because that's where it's at. And we're going to talk about some other stuff and connections. Oh, don't do that.
I don't know. The hands aren't pointing there. We talked about
there's way too many. And it's the first. It's not really the first. This is all about, countries that want to write their own history. We know the Spanish was here first. Oh, listen, I'm going to start off with this. So right before the podcast, the Ride the Man of Oz. So I went, okay. So who played Oz? So I look up Frank Morgan. He's the actor that played Oz and the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
And he's got a brother that's an actor. So I started, to use the fairies of the book. So in Roanoke, my opinion, you got British and German. Those are the two you need to solve it. So
I got to get a drink. I'll be right back. Keep going.
So Frank Morgan is of German and Spanish ancestry. His dad was George Wupperman. He was born in Venezuela, but he grew up in Germany. His parents, I assume since he moved to Germany, his parents were German. His mother, now get this, now you can't, there's no connection, but you can't make up the way this stuff falls in place. So
I think there's an important point to what you're saying.
No, I mean, just when you go through history.
Continue on.
So his mom is American born. She's of British descent, and her name is Josephine Wright.
This is Frank Morgan.
This is his actor mom. Frank Morgan, yeah. Wright, spelled Wright. And then I had to do all this like, oh my God, there's no way she's related to the Wright brothers. And no, she's not. But I was like, get the hell out of here. Like Josephine Wright. So Frank Morgan does have, so we got the British fairy in Roanoke. So Frank Morgan's also British because his mother, and German, his father, and Spanish. Now the Spanish connects Roanoke to St. Augustine because of Paul Green, the playwright. And the only two plays that he wrote for states, which were the Waterside Theaters, Lost Colony, and the Amphitheater in St. Augustine, Cross and Sword.
Really?
Yeah. Paul Green.
Same author.
Yeah. So if you look in the verses for these two.
That's really cool. That's really cool. I didn't know that.
So you have green mentioned in St. Augustine, green picket fences. This is where, we talk about double meanings.
Well, that's at the amphitheater, though. That very famous green picket fence at the amphitheater.
Yeah, but the thing is, at the time Byron was burying these, the amphitheater used to have a, I don't even know what it was. I tried to find pictures of it. It was rebuilt for Cross and Sword, which I think premiered in 1965.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Mark Bugby would probably know more on that.
Yeah.
But prior to that, there used to be some kind of theater there that, from what I remember, it burned down in like 1932 or something like that. But that place sat dormant until they rebuilt it for the Lost Colony play, which had a very long run until I think the late 80s. That's when I guess they just stopped selling tickets. Like everything else in society, people just get tired of. But it was telling, both these plays are telling the story of the Roanoke colony calling them Roanoke and meeting the Croatoan natives, Cross and Sword, very similar. Mendez, St. Augustine, all that, so on and so forth. But
so Eric, let me pause just for a second.
Go ahead.
And I think this is a big, big challenge with this whole thing, especially now. This actually is it's information overload, right? It's like we have I can go walk every inch of the park, everywhere. I can see all the views, and And that's very helpful, but it's also information overload. So I contend to you, sir, humbly, and the rest of the viewing audience, that there are just natural connections to things. And so as a hunter, if you want to get to the right location, I think, could be wrong, I think you've got to be very careful because there are so many image matches, parts, strange coincidences all over the place, just like this right one. That's a perfect example, in my opinion, that, if a hunter gets really fired up about that, they're like, oh, all of a sudden, so the question is like, how do you as a hunter separate out coincidence from causation, from, hey, this was the intention of Byron or JJP? And that I think speaks to a little bit of this filters idea that we're going to touch on. But that's a really important thing. Like as a hunter, I think, and I know this from personal experience, is that your mind wants to make the connections. We want to figure it out and get those aha moments. And I would argue too, I think there are a ton of coincidences that aren't that weren't the intention of the creators of JJP and Byron. And so as a hunter, you've got to find a way to put the odds in your favor that what you're seeing and interpreting is indeed what they meant. And there are ways I think you can do that safely. We're going to talk about filters is one of those, okay? But there are other, there are others. Because I look at, I did an operation at the Wright Brothers Memorial. And the mind wants to see it. It's biased, it's reaching and it's grabbing and it wants to make the connection. And then the minute I have something that kind of boom, right? And so I think the moral of the story is you have to be your own worst critic. You have to be open to people saying, hey, I don't think that fits. Here's why. Because they're not as enamored with it. Right. And then also, so one, I think, is you have to be extremely curious, meaning just because I see a connection, I shouldn't just run to it because maybe there's a better one. Okay. So you have to be super curious. Right. And then you also, I think 1 and 2 is you can't accept a mediocre answer. When I look back at my failures, it was because I took an answer that worked. And there, I think, are many answers that can work to these things. Clearly, that's why people are all over the place digging and I think it's here. No, it's over here. It's over there. Why? It's like they've settled on something that's mediocre and it's not the best answer. So that, to me, is how you get to the right answers. You have to be extremely curious and not settle for the B answer. It's got to be the A+ answer.
And Byron tells you in the book to be playful. All this stuff, like if you're not exactly sure what the definition of the word like playful is, you got to look at it. I mean, playful is like when you punch your buddy in the arm. You're not really hurting him. You're not mad. It's, a playful jab. And at the meetup, JJP talked about a lot of the stuff that was meant for distraction. And it is distraction from the puzzle and where you need to be, but you're learning something. This whole book is a teaching history lesson. And a ton of it is like you're more literal. I do that, but so much of this is metaphorical. I made a post the other day that I deleted, but someone I know came up to a place in Milwaukee, and I had come across this topic, but I didn't really dig it because I didn't know what ferries I needed to follow. But when I did, I'm not going to say who this person is or where their place is. I left that up to them.
Yeah.
But I was trying to figure out today how I can give a clue. Now, if everybody looks in the back of the book, there is a book story that has a concentration of Idaho. And this topic, I went, okay, so what the heck would do with this topic or subject has anything to do with Idaho. And when I went there in the history using this topic, I mean, I got to really think when I'm doing this because I don't want to slip up and say something. That state is the only state in the United States that has anything to do with this subject. And right there, I'm just because anything connected, you know, the metaphors like the German, you got, you know, we already talked about it. It's German, and you can see that in the stories for you start with the Warner von Brownie and St. Augustine, because these two stories are deadlock connected. The story of Paul Green and the Jacko lectern at the bottom where it says UNC, that's where Paul Green was. That's where everything, you know, Paul Green, of course, he's deceased now, but the little cottage where he used to write was moved to UNC. So when today, if you go playwright Paul Green, where do I need to go? The book tells you. It was that same way back in when Byron was constructing the book. He was at University of North Carolina. And you look at the little bottom, it says opposite. And when you look at the illustration there, you got the Christmas tree, which is the Tannenbaum German. The story tells you it's German. And the microphone that was invented by something Liner. So he's giving you that imagery, but the microphone has a lot more to do with it. It has connections to the theater. You know, it was bandshell back in the day when there's no microphones, no speakers, and that the bandshell design. And we know there's a whole bunch of bandshells mentioned.
So you think which one refers to Milwaukee? Which story?
I don't remember. What did I do with my book? The area concentration is listed for Idaho, and that story, you know, once you find that subject or topic, and you're using the ferries, you have to go and you make that determination. Anybody you come across, say if you come across what people listen to the book, George Washington. Yeah, he became an American, but the 13 colonies were British. So all our founding fathers were British subjects. It's as simple as that. Mendez and St. Augustine, he was a Spanish explorer. Cabot discovered the St. Lawrence from Montreal. He was an Italian explorer. So you got to go through all these people and figure out where they came from. And not only that, people, unless it's a subject of something that's American, like say the Civil War, which was Byron's favorite war. And there's Douglas. He's going to be joining us now. What's up, Douglas?
Hey, brother.
Yeah. Hey, Batman.
Hey, what's going on?
Yeah, he's inside now. I thought he'd be like in the snow and like all.
Oh God, no! I knew he wasn't going to do that. No, that's why you didn't. That's why you didn't want to do the podcast last week. I said it's freezing.
No, it's cold inside. I'm wearing a hoodie inside. So
3 hours in the podcast, he was like Jack Nicholson from The Shining. Hey,
yeah,
so Eric,
go ahead.
So again, I think this gets back to, and I'm super curious in finding the right locations. If I can do that, if I can be a part of a team. So I try to think about, okay, how did he bring these things together? And I still come back to this idea that he probably picks the spot first and he works backwards.
That's exactly
now.
I agree.
So that's important because, again, I know you are an expert, maybe the world's expert on the stories. I don't think those lead. However, on the ones that I've worked on, as you guys know, some of them are extremely definitive and some aren't, I think. And this is the beauty of this. It's like just when you think, I got the formula, he switches it up. Okay. However, in light of that,
that happens because it'd be ridiculous to make 12 puzzles and have them all work the same.
Yeah, I mean that'd be far too easy.
A lot of people are stuck on, Rob. See, when Rob had the book, he told me everything was frozen. So this is late '82. It's Chicago.
Everything was
back
frozen
out there. I've never got to ask him because it was wintertime.
Oh, so the ground was frozen.
Yeah, so they went back months later, but it wasn't just Rob; it was a few of them. And I was wondering if anybody had. I remember today I asked Brian Zen if you used any part of the book, what did you use? Because people
so those weren't those guys didn't use the stories to find Chicago, right?
No.
Rob said no, because they start that story out with I think his friend goes, "Hey, that's the water tower downtown."
It's
just been made to look like a windmill, stuff with, and it's a great example of JJP, like he painted it like it is and then added stuff to it.
I mean, so my point, Eric, in this is I think you have to tread very carefully with the stories, because I think you had the dig site first, and then he worked backwards from there to where what was exactly, a cool start.
That's exactly how you do airbase. Well, you got to see the immigration.
Because he can't start somewhere. He can't start somewhere and say, "Oh, I'm going to be over here," and then he finds one other place to go, and then he's kind of in a dead end. He doesn't know where to go.
Exactly.
It's a journey. If it's a journey puzzle.
When he chose Roanoke Island, I mean, what's the most popular thing there?
The only thing I don't like about the only thing I don't like, and I think that's probably right. The problem with it is the hands aren't pointing to the island. They point above the island. So this speaks to, like, when I was in San Francisco, I did an operation at Battery Chamberlain. And we got chased by the cops. It was really cool. Okay.
Don't admit that.
It was so cool. Well,
I'm going to make a banner for you. Mark committing the crimes.
Well, I didn't say that. I just said the cops were chasing me. I didn't say admit to anything. But it turns out they weren't. I can go through that story some other time. But it turns out they weren't. We thought they were. It was awesome. It was so fun. Okay.
You were running from cops. You didn't know that they weren't actually chasing you.
Again, if you want to hear the story, I'll tell you. But so it was actually the National Park Police that patrol in the Presidio. But
so
anyway,
the National Park as well.
It was it's the beach there.
Okay.
I'm slipping me for a second. But anyway, so when I look at that, and we were close. We're below a battery, and we had the shape of the where the pearl would be and all this, but we were missing some key elements. And in my mind, I didn't. It was like it was okay, right? And I was able to justify it. Like, I got all these other things, but no. Mark's crime story call. Oh man. Well, I will. Look, I'm one of these people where if you can get away with it and dig, hey, that's just my view.
Hey,
you're supposed to get permission. But
hey, you usually start hey, what are you doing over there?
So my whole point is, in Roanoke, I think it's got to be on Roanoke Island. But when I look at the painting, it doesn't support that. So that bothers me, and it makes me.
Roanoke Island is in the painting.
I know, but the hands point above it. If you trace the line, it's close. Now maybe it's close enough. Maybe it's close enough.
I agree with Mark. Can you believe this?
Wow! But they don't point to this baseball field. By the way, okay, hang on a second. I'll put it up there. But
that's grasping at straws.
It's close.
There is it's not on no baseball field at any other puzzle.
Well, so as an example, if you're at this baseball field that people have been digging up for decades, the hands don't point there. Okay, so I'm not sure how that can be right if what's in the painting doesn't support that spot. That's all I'm saying. And so these are the things I think are important. I know they're important.
Yeah, I get it.
Because
you're looking at literal literally pointing above the islands.
Yes. I think that's important. Now, I will say, operation that I talk about all the time in Charleston with the clock hand.
Yeah.
Small clock hand points really close to Patriots, but doesn't point right at the spot. So maybe those hands are close enough, meaning he's telling you basically be on the north end of Roanoke Island with the hands.
You are going to be on the beach in the north end of Roanoke Island.
I don't care for your hands thing. I don't care for the hands on the clock in North Carolina.
He's pointing.
I know it's 4:00 though. Things happen at 4:00 when I'm at the park.
When you bring the clock into play, the verse Roanoke is mostly it's the verse. The verse is what you need more than anything.
Why would he show you these? I mean, these. This in Boston.
The painting's metaphorical. So you got when you look at the armor, what timeline is that? That's Queen Elizabeth I. And who's known for using armor the most? The British. King Arthur. You can go to Justin's here.
All right. So here's the thing.
What's up, Justin?
Look at this finger over here. That thing.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just saying, and these two now, are they really pointing to something? The way JJP works, I think anything is unintentional. So he knows he has these hands that he's depicting, and he knows he has fingers. It's working that way in San Francisco, I can tell you. So why would these fingers not be pointing to the general area or the box? Hey, Justin. So this one clearly, look at his right hand. If that's not, he's right over here. So that's why on this one, do you have to fold this thing over? I don't know. But I know this.
I've tried.
If you have a good explanation for these fingers and where they're pointing, I like it. I like your solve. If you don't.
I've never done any research on the hands of that painting.
Yes. So these are things, this is obvious, right? This is on the surface. It's right there in front of us.
I don't believe it's Roanoke. I agree.
It probably points to the box. He does this in other situations. So this is where, if you can figure out where these things are pointing.
Well, and also that thing that looks like Roanoke Island, I think it could all mean more than one thing. It does not have to mean Roanoke Island. It might make you want to think it means Roanoke Island.
Let me tell you this. There's a lot of people. This is something else I did research on today. A lot of people think it's Roanoke, Virginia. Okay. Now, when you go back to the Queen, well, a lot of it's because of the Filthy Hobbit story and tobacco and stuff like that, which is something, Britain really didn't have tobacco until the colonists here started to grow it. One of the places they grew it was Virginia, North Carolina. And then Britain got a taste for it, so it became an export commodity. But when they were on Roanoke Island, that area was not called North Carolina. It was called the Colony of Virginia.
But here's the thing.
And it was named after Queen Elizabeth I.
So
that's how he's playing with you with Virginia. Because a lot of people go, no, it's in Virginia, not North Carolina. Yeah,
but look, he's got the references to the Wright brothers, and then he's showing you an outline here. You have to look closely. We all know it now. We see it. But when people were first looking at this, they didn't know what this shape was, probably. So I'm just saying it would be disingenuous of JJP to show us Roanoke Island and have it not be near Roanoke Island. I just don't think he would do that. Be like,
it's more than Roanoke Islands.
I really meant Virginia. You know what I mean? I just don't see him doing that. He doesn't need to do that. It's disingenuous. Just like Charleston, he's showing you Charleston, even though it's not in the downtown. It's nearby. So anyway, if it's not near Roanoke Island, it would be
way too many clues to Roanoke Island for it to be anywhere else.
Douglas, why are you off this? Why are you off Roanoke Island?
Yeah, Douglas.
It doesn't make sense to me because it's too risky.
It's 3 against 1 here on this, I think.
It's not like Byron to go there. from my discussions with Ben Asen, it just doesn't make sense. If we think about the way he's going to think, in my opinion. Because it's really risky to go to Roanoke Island. Really risky.
And
what's risky about it? What's risky about it?
There's a lot of laws you're going to break if they catch you. And there's a lot of laws that he could be liable for if the law caught one of us. So he shouldn't really be running around national.
Oh, that's why he used the beach to bury it. No private property.
Yeah. I agree. He's gonna.
But
he's gonna bury
as
it on
of
the
last
border
year,
or
you can't even dig on the beach anymore. And I think that's because a bunch of people are down there.
I mean, what if you're fishing? You can't dig for worms.
That is not supported though by this photo, by the painting. I will just say, each idea is not supported. You have a window here. There's really, I mean, this could be water over here because there's not much up in here. There's more stuff down in here, but it's
I think all the blue is water. Usually the blue is water, in my opinion.
Yeah, but then what's all this in front of it? My point is, I think you're back from the water with a view of it somehow. So this would imply that you're not on the beach.
No,
but you're close to it. You're close to it.
The Morning Star is in that painting twice. You have a Morning Star weapon, and then in the back, in the window, you have the Morning Star sunrise. And the Morning Star sunrise is Venus. Now, Queen Elizabeth I, every painting of her, she is depicted as Venus. I mean, these are just simple connections that you find when you do research about Queen Elizabeth I. And the armor, the armor is, it's got struts under the arm. So it's like, you imagine a kid running around the yard acting like he's an airplane. There's an airplane symbol on his chest. The other stuff, I mean, Roanoke, but you got to imagine if you never knew anything about I'd heard about the Lost Colony. I had no idea where it was on an island. I had no idea it was in the Outer Banks or that it was on Roanoke Island. So not everybody's gonna. I mean, if a local there, which obviously didn't happen, had gotten this book, they would have immediately recognized this as being Roanoke Island. Immediately. That is the most. That and the FDR's 1937 visit to Manteo are the two biggest events in the history of that place. And that Waterside Theater, and then the verse mentions white is in color. Well, that's a double reference to the flowers of the garden and John White. His two maps are inside the building when you enter there. Dark Forest is on a plaque in there. The garden is a circle, is a square with a circle in the middle of it.
Let's think about this. So Douglas, what you're saying, right, is, and Eric, I think you're right. I mean, back in 1980, right, there's nothing, and all this stuff's wide open, and so could it be nearby Fort Raleigh? Yeah, I think that's a real possibility. But I would just contrast, right? This is like compare and contrast helps us to frame. Look at all this open space. Is like people think this is a wave. I think it's actually trees from the dig site, but there's nothing in here. You can go with a big old magnifying glass. There's nothing in here. So when I look at this, I do see water. I see a lot of water that you're probably looking out over water on this one. Okay. Yeah, I don't know that to be. But
yeah,
over here, that's not the case, folks.
That New York painting has a connection to this. FDR.
Okay, but so like
both of them.
We're trying to rationalize where could this thing be. You're going to see imagery from the dig site.
To the New York painting.
Right. So that's all I'm saying is I don't agree with the beach at all, because I don't think that's what he would show us. Like, it's something like New York. So it almost is, he's got this very stone-like stuff going on. So somewhere inside of the Elizabethan Gardens is probably the right answer, I think, because you have it's very stone-like stuff going on there. And when I was there, I didn't stop in there, unfortunately. But I'm just saying, like, this is inside with a view, like, over to the Wright Brothers Memorial, I think.
I mean,
there's
it's not on the
imagery
beach.
of Charleston in there too, but
It's not on the beach. It's not on the beach. There's nothing in here that tells me I'm looking out over an expanse of water.
Hey,
I
go
can
back
see
to
a
the New York
window.
puzzle. Now,
Right?
zoom in on the water. Now, anybody that's ever been on the beach,
Here?
now go down. Now, is that actually a pool of water, or is that just the water of the last crashing wave going back?
This,
And you can't see the sand.
From the
Anybody
digs.
who's ever been at the beach, you can see that as where's the wave crash at?
But this is more than that, right? It's not a wave. It's something that kind of looks like a wave, but it's probably two or three things.
Yeah,
it's not just a wave. It's not just a wave. It can't be.
No.
Well,
but I'm just saying, like, look,
radio waves. See that's the metaphorical connection.
There's nothing.
Any kind of wave you can imagine can be metaphorically connected to that.
Maybe. But there's nothing up here. I challenge you. I mean, there's some. It almost looks like trees in up in here.
The background?
There's nothing hidden in that background.
No, there's nothing in the background.
There's different colorations, so I don't know. Yeah. Could it be trees? I really don't know. But look, there's nothing there. Now, if you go and you take a magnifying glass into this sumbitch, you're going to see a lot of stuff up in here. All these little, like here and here. This is all stone-like. I mean,
and you see even highlighted them with a little light hitting them to give them.
Yeah, these are like clumps of trees from above or something. Like up here, this is. I mean, look at this thing. That looks like one of the fountains or something inside Elizabethan Gardens, I think.
Well, JJP said the print was bad in the book, and he even said there's a lot of stuff because of the print you can't see.
Yeah.
So he's hinting that he hid something.
Well, look at. The background could be blurred, though, so they're hypothetical, really.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, this doesn't support the water. It doesn't support the water.
The blue
does. But you're looking through something, so you've got something in front of you.
Well, that's the sky. That is obviously the sky.
And then you're looking through a window. I'm saying this implies that you are looking through some structure.
Hang on, I'll be right back.
You're looking at some structure, yes, definitely.
I mean, that's all. I don't have a good spot here. I need to really sink my teeth into this, but
I got a spot, but I'm not going to release it yet. Not yet. I'm still working on it, but it's good.
Justin, are you on Roanoke Island?
I'm on Roanoke. Well, I'm not on Roanoke Island, but killed over him. But if anyone is out there, there's so much.
Hey, Douglas, are you having a hard time hearing Justin?
Yeah.
No, it's real muffled.
Yes, yeah, Justin.
How about now? Can you hear me better?
No. No, it's very faint.
It's like muffled. Yeah, it's like the speakers covered or something.
How about now?
Yeah, it's really muffled. Can you turn it way up? The mic, maybe?
There's the phone. I blame Apple on that. Still not coming through?
It's really hard to hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh. I don't do anything different this time.
Do you have a cover? You have a protective cover on the phone, maybe?
No, I don't.
It could be just bad.
I mean, maybe you gotta if you hold it close.
How about now?
That's better. Closer, the closer you get, the closer you get, the better, man.
All right, can you hear me?
It's really, really faint. Do you have the iPods that you can put in?
I have my earbuds in. I'm not doing anything different than last time. So,
Eric, we're having a hard time with Justin's audio. He's.
Hey, what? I remember last time this happened. What did you do last time to fix it? I remember you came back on last time. We could hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but you're really low.
Yeah, faint.
You got earbuds. They got a mic on them.
I think the earbuds have a mic on them.
So it sounds like your mic is covered up with something.
Can you hear me now?
Barely. Technical issues. I'll throw it over to the sound engineer, but I don't have one.
Yeah. So, anyways, this is where.
Yeah, let him come back in.
You have to have a really good explanation for this. You can't say this is on the beach to me because
it's near a beach.
I don't have this thing in front of me from the dig site. If I'm on the beach, I mean it's a beach and water. That's not what's depicted in this painting. So that is a huge disconnect, folks.
If you look in the verse, he's put direct clues that are at the garden. So it's got to put you there. Dark forest, white is in colors, the flowers and John White. Two John White's maps are in the, I don't know if it's the visitor center or they got a little museum.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that gets you about this one is, I saw someone talk about under that which may be last touch or first seen standing. So I did a little research on that. So John White, this actually comes from his transcripts. When they were approaching Roanoke Island, the only thing standing on the beach were the Croatoan Indians, like a greeting party. And I think it says possibly last touch because they were on the island and they vanished, but they don't know. I made a post the other day about some historians are now saying they think they got massacred, but they said they're not going to go with that because there's no evidence. But Sir Ralph Lane, when he was there and the disease broke out that they were giving the tribes people, he documented that they were burning the bodies. So even back then, the indigenous tribes people, they knew they didn't bury people. They burned everybody, which is, an old ritual that even goes back to England, Scotland, all that stuff. So, because the person asked on the page was saying, is this a reference to the gate? Well, it could be if a path is beckoning you to Micah Driftwood, first seen standing could be eventually when you get there, because from the garden you can't see the gate. Maybe first seen standing is something you see as you approach the beach. But Micah Driftwood is the beach. There's no other definition of that. Instead of saying the beach, he says Micah in Driftwood. And Driftwood, by definition, is old trees that have washed up on a beach. Now, it's eroded as hell out there now, and the gates collapsed. Good chance. A storm. I think the 2014 hurricane is the one that did the most damage out there, and they are excavating some areas out there right now because of the erosion encroachment to where they know the colonists were. They've been doing quite a few of those digs. So erosion's a big problem on the island right now.
In Byron, that wouldn't be lost on him. Just like JJP just like Byron and WPG, he knew that area flooded. That was no secret. But I'm just saying, like up near the beach or on the beach.
That's the only one that's going to be 3 feet. See that two and a half to 3 feet. I think that's Byron going. They're buried somewhere between up to 2.5 feet and 3 feet.
Too risky to bury it where it's going to flood. There's all these other places.
They got very low tides there. But if you went 3 feet down the sand, there would have major erosion have to occur. But there's no way to determine that. When you used to pass out the gate, you could see from photos that there was kind of a dune there outside the gate, and you had to turn to the right. That point on the beach, nobody can determine. And from the beach, you gaze north at the wing. So 30 degrees on a compass from north points right from that beach to the Wright Brothers Memorial. I mean, hits the side of it. But that where you take that shot from, and there's a line in front of you that you were supposed to probe, nobody knows where that point is. So you'd have to
look
take
at
that
this, right?
Taking you back
just to find it.
This is showing you the memorial. Okay.
Yep.
Now
Yes.
it looks like it's from the air. Someone pointed that out, and I think they're right. So what does that mean? I don't know, but gosh, if you can't see the memorial or be looking towards it because you're looking at
it's twice. You start there and you're finishing there.
So you should.
Puzzle.
I don't think so.
Past two friends of Octave. That's Kitty Hawk. It's metaphor.
But you don't.
Past
you
two
don't
friends of Octave. That's Kitty Hawk, and
you don't go back there.
That's where they flew, and then Wright Brothers Memorial. That is the Wright Brothers. He doesn't say Wright Brothers. He says two friends Octave, and you got to. And he's not using Octave's last name, so you got to figure out.
That's very Byron-esque, right? But I'm just saying, like JJP is showing us two views. It's a mirror, right? But this one is the real one over here. This one is inverted. But like if you can't see the memorial or be looking towards it, how can you be right? Because he's showing you it here.
I agree with you.
He's showing it to you.
It says from the beach, you gaze north at the wing and dig.
Yeah, I agree.
You're looking at the. So when you walk out, you go. If you're standing there, you got ocean, beach, 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 and you gaze north at the wing over there and dig.
That's right.
That's not depicted in the painting. Is
right
my
in
point.
Front of you. No, you got to use the verse too. That's why this is verse heavy.
Yeah, but if it doesn't add up per the painting, then it's wrong.
And you're skipping a lot of lines too. I mean,
and see, you can even do metaphorical.
Home there.
I'm just saying, like this painting is showing us a view. I think through something. I could say, "Oh, that's the gate." Well, I don't know. That doesn't look like a gate at all to me. It looks like a window. Why would he paint a window as a gate? So there's something in front of us here, and then off in the distance is.
Yep.
Anyway, so I don't think this is where the beach. People have rationalized all that out. It doesn't fit the painting. Period. So I don't know how you can be right.
The pedestal the armor on is in the Elizabethan Gardens. They're all over the place.
Yes.
Exactly.
You got to pay to get in there, though. You've always had to pay to get into Elizabeth Gardens. Is he on the outside?
Well, that's also why they have a back gate. That's the end of their property. So you go out on the beach.
I don't think you got to pay. I don't think he wants you to buy to get in.
Did you have to pay back in 1980? Have we verified that?
Yeah.
Probably so. And it's like $30 to get in. It's
it's expensive.
Yeah, it's a national historic site. They got
probably not.
They got expenses. They got a garden to maintain.
Yeah.
So I would tell you, there's no way in hell it's at the Elizabethan Gardens if you had to pay money, whatever it was.
It's not there. I don't think so.
Yeah, it's not there.
Maybe around the outside. So maybe try to sneak it in somewhere, but not inside after the admission.
Hang on, let's take a break a second. I'm just going to go through some of the comments. Simpson Pro says, hi, everybody. Somebody says hello from Phoenix. Simpson Pro says, the bottom of the painting has a shovel next to what looks like home plate and a home shape. There's
a million image matches.
That's a coronation spoon. There is one on the watch, 2 notches on the key, 3 bells. They are shaped like a ballpark. That hand is shaped like a horse. Let's get what we're talking since we got these in the comments.
Image matches, bad.
Yeah. There's a baseball on the left front shoulder of the armor. And me and Mark were talking about this before we went live. So there's 2 guys in history that were given credit for the development of the curveball. Now, one guy was a kid, while the other guy was a Union soldier on Roanoke Island, where he actually developed the curveball. Now, his baseball historians, Candy Cummings gets credit because he's the one that actually brought the curveball to baseball, and a lot of coaches and teams wanted it banned because it's a very deceptive pitch, and they didn't like it. They considered it dirty. But he was born in 1848. But during the Civil War, there was a guy, his nickname was Phony Martin, but his name was Alphonse Martin. He was a Union soldier on Roanoke Island, which the Union took it over for strategic purposes, but he is the one that actually, and I agree with him, he's the one that actually developed the curveball, which was called the slow curve. Now, if you go to the team spirits and you look at the baseball pitching references, you'll see fastball, gopher ball, and curveball. Now, the curveball of professional baseball today was developed on that island by a baseball player. It's as simple as that. That's one of the connective clues that proves Roanoke Island, because it's no other place in the country. The guy was a Civil War soldier. He was on, and Byron would have known this history. This is something when he's looking up the history. What happened there?
Yeah. Byron
man,
history.
I had no idea either. Which also,
but this is not a baseball.
I'd say that's a baseball.
No, I don't know.
There ain't much another else it could be.
It's painted right on here. It says not a baseball. So why do you think that's baseball?
Because you hate baseball.
Well,
and by the way, British is the second ferry of San Francisco, and that topic of that story is baseball. This story proves it.
So there's another baseball over here. This is a runway, as far as I'm concerned, but I think I love this painting. I love it.
The key with the big loop, that's the Wright Brothers Airport.
Yes, I would agree.
You look from there, you can see that.
And the other thing,
and this is stuff, and you got to look at this puzzle, okay? This is Roanoke Island, which is Manteo. But in this imagery, you have Nag's Head, Kill Devil Hills. Kill Devil Hills is where the Wright brothers really flew the plane, not at the memorial site. That's all made up.
No, that's not.
There's a lot of cities that are actually listed in here.
Yeah,
they actually, well, that's what I read.
No, yeah, they flew. Kill Devil Hills is where the Wright brothers site is. It's on Kill Devil Hill, and they flew on that site. I think you're thinking about Jockey's Ridge.
They flew all over the place.
I think what they meant is where they depicted they actually flew, like it's on the ground with markers.
Yeah,
it's that area, but what I heard, it was closer to the dunes because basically where the road is, because they didn't want the wind, because they only flew for like so many seconds and stuff, so
they didn't want to get it there, and then they have preserved it with grass and everything. But you can actually go and watch the videos. They had people filming it when the Wright brothers flew, and you can match it up. It's the same site.
Mark, go back to the hand.
Yeah.
Simpson Pro said the hand is shaped like a horse.
Image matches, like there's a million of them.
I mean, you got
with all due respect,
Outer Banks horses. Well, that's where Nag's Head got its name from.
So look at this. Hear me better now?
Yeah.
I want to share something with you.
That's better. Right. You see how it's not pointing to Roanoke Island. Anyway, sorry.
Check it out. So Byron made this book. Let's see. The Son of Sherlock Holmes, The Woman in Red. This came out prior to The Secret. But it's a Sherlock Holmes story that he created. But it is centered around Roanoke. And in the first few pages, there's actually, look what he puts in the book.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, so Byron was obsessed with the Lost Colony. He put it in many of his books. So I don't think there's any doubt that Roanoke is the area and the Wright Brothers Monument are like central places in this puzzle. But yeah,
should they cover that book? Because I'm sure some people are going to want to buy that.
Oh,
Okay,
it's hard to find.
I've seen that one.
If you can find it, it's the woman in red.
And but what is Sherlock Holmes?
And this whole book is about like a treasure hunt, and he hides puzzles in different books. And so, like, if you really want to trip out on something, this is pretty cool.
Is that just a metaphor to what we're doing right now? Are we all Sherlock Holmes? And and Sherlock Holmes was of what country?
England.
Exactly. All right, so look at this finger. This finger is not pointing Roanoke.
That's why Justin's a group expert, because you cannot deny that book has something to do with the secret book. And that is right there. Even the Native Americans living on the island. I mean, there was a big tribe in that area, but the Croatoans, Roanoke Island. 100%. It's something else that proves Roanoke Island.
You know, Byron as a writer, as a producer of books, he's an artist, and all artists have a toolbox, things that they love to use, like JJP. Like if you look at all of his paintings, you can recognize them because he uses the same kind of imagery and pulls the same kind of things out of his toolbox, the things that he resonates with, that he likes. And Byron did a lot of the same things. You can't help it as an artist but to regurgitate a lot of the same ideas and concepts that you are familiar with and that you like. And so if you go and read books,
and being a history teacher and a book publisher, so Ronnie Barrow says, face at the bottom of the armor's right hand gauntlet. Virginia Dare ? Face at the armor's right hand bottom. Can you zoom in on that, Mark?
Give me a sec here. Hey, that Simpson Proch, her comment is kind of covering up Justin. I can't really see him. Can you get rid of her comment there?
Yeah, hang on a second.
Okay.
And look at that hand, like you were saying earlier.
There he is.
So look at the darkened hand.
Yeah, on the right hand.
Yeah, it's pointing, but look at it closely. The shadowed part is the number 3. And there are 4 markers out there at the Wright Brothers Monument. So, maybe that's a little clue there. But
maybe.
Clearly a number 3 there. So, something like
your mic got real good for a second.
Yeah, I turned off my earbud things. They were messing me up, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's what happened last time.
But you see the 3? So it could be pointing to the 3rd thing there. The darkened part of the hand that's in the shadow.
And I see it.
I don't. This index. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of shapes that we see looking in the clouds, right? But this finger is pointing down here. It's pointing off of the painting.
Well,
that means something.
To the 3rd thing.
Well, I see it pointing. If I just follow it, it's pointing kind of off the picture. So to me, if this is Wright Brothers, if you orient this thing properly, I think it's pointing down towards Roanoke Island. I don't know. But this finger means something. He didn't paint these fingers on this hand as, I want to have the guy with his hand open.
You know what that really looks like? It looks like how you hold a baseball before you pitch a curveball.
What can I do? Can I get a boo sound effect?
Do I need to look that up?
I'm gonna say something, and you can tell JJP this. It's definitely there's a bird stuffed in that armor. I'm telling you that. That's just one of my clues. Those are feathers at the bottom. There's a bird stuck in it because it's actually a bird you're going to be looking at.
I love this puzzle. There's so much stuff to talk about. It's ridiculous.
But I got more. I got to do more research before I.
I'll tell you what. It was close.
What's that?
Hand position for a curveball. That one damn finger was the hell out of there.
I think those fingers are pointing to the ground.
Oh no! Oh no! Listen, y'all ready for this? Now look at the hand.
Mm-hmm.
This says how to throw a curveball. I can't flip this photo over.
The live's in the way.
Yeah, the live's blocking you. Hard to see.
The what is? Oh, the light.
The live
live
timer on the top. It says.
Oh, here. See it?
Yeah.
I think that's exactly like that hand is.
Looks like it's censored.
That's the pointer finger pointing out, the thumb, second finger tucked in.
I just can't see him doing another baseball puzzle.
No.
Like,
Oh,
no.
so
doesn't make any sense.
No. There is no baseball. Boston was just home plate, nothing else. Yeah. Everybody's like Chicago or Boston Red Sox. No.
If he makes this about baseball, you lose the Wright brothers, you lose Roanoke. I mean,
there's a baseball history clue to the area.
Yeah.
And the fact when you look up curveballs in the book and you look up curveball and the guy that really gets credit, and the reason that Phony Martin doesn't get the credit is because professional baseball wasn't really taken off because he was there during the Civil War. Professional baseball did not open till that's something for Mark when I think so. Teddy Roosevelt was president, 1901 or 1904.
Yeah.
So during the Civil War, there was no organized baseball. The Cincinnati Red Stockings hadn't been founded or none of that. But Candy Martin, born in 1948, later he was actually in what was the start of professional baseball, and he got credit for it. And that's only because he brung it to the sport and made it popular, which ticked a lot of people off.
Eric, what
Mark, why are you in the comments?
Pages? What back of the book pages have you
I knew that was
coming. That wasn't for you, Justin. That was for the big man there.
Let me see. Okay,
sorry for the interruption.
What's happening?
But yeah, Eric, you're a back of the book guy. What kind of back of the book pages have you identified with this one? I think there's a few that like seal the deal. It's like there's no arguing about it if you dig into the back of the book.
Well, this is Roanoke could have been like Chicago. If somebody in that area had gotten this book, they wouldn't need those stories. Now, I think they'd immediately
nobody in there.
Go out.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was the problem.
It was like 20 people.
It was so bad there back in in 1937 when FDR went to the Lost Colony play. He came in by boat. That's how. But then the Coast Guard actually brought him in, and they showed pictures. He had a parade and stuff, but they had a main street, and that was about it.
So Justin, where are you at? Do you have a high probability spot you like here?
I'm in Kill Devil Hills. So, that's where I'm at. I think the devil is pretty telling. But that puzzle's in my backyard, so I don't want to give out too much information about it.
Yeah.
I main search. But getting back to the back of the book pages, the Spirit of St. Louis is connected to this puzzle. And it actually, in the Spirit of St. Louis back of the book page, they actually say the words dauntless and unconquerable together in the same sentence. So if that's not
plenty of applause.
Yeah.
He knows how to do it. Okay, so let's go. Spirit of St. Louis.
And hold on, do you guys know what the Spirit of St. Louis is? Because most people don't.
That's that guy that flew the plane, right?
Charles Lindbergh's plane.
Yeah, Lindbergh's plane.
Yeah.
It's in the Smithsonian Air Museum.
They're saying St. Louis, but no, he's giving us a hint towards.
And exactly why? Because the aviation Wright brothers connection. You could say, and metaphorically, you could say that Lindbergh was inspired by the Wright brothers, just like they were inspired by Otto Lilienthal.
Yeah,
and Otto Lilienthal, he's depicted. He's the caricature, the German hanging from the bubble, because that's exactly how he died. On one of his, I can't remember how many hang glider. I think he had 80 hang glider flights, and then he was on one and he fell. And then you got a carnation, which is just like New York, it's a death flower. The flowers of New York and Roanoke Island are connected. The chrysanthemum is a death flower in Japan, and it's also a symbol of their royal imperial family.
I agree with that. That's the death flower.
Yeah. These are clues in the secret. Did Byron overdo it? Yeah. But a lot of this stuff is just to connect stuff.
Some kind of grave.
Yeah.
It's a death flower.
And just like how he said the spirit of St. Louis. Like that metaphorically, you said, if you said Wright brothers, Otto Lilienthal, Charles Lindbergh, Amelia Earhart, someone just goes, it's like remember that old game show where they weren't allowed to say what it was? They'd go steering wheel, keys, automobile.
$64,000 pyramid.
That's the secret. Byron's not saying the name of the person. He's just giving you metaphorical clues. And JJ, like looking at this picture of this painting, armor. This armor. Did the French have armor? Yeah. Dutch have armor back in the day? Yeah. But who's most well known for suits of armor, combat, any damn movie you've ever seen? Even looking at Gladiator, they weren't wearing suits of armor. No. This is your first clue when you read the book, and it says one of the ferries you're looking for on the first voyage is the British ferry. You go, hey, British armor. That's not Spanish armor. That's not French armor. It's nothing to do with Africa or Asia or anything. Now, if that was a samurai, you'd go Japan. See? You could say Japan without spelling or saying Japan by simply showing imagery. So when you go out to San Francisco, Byron says you're looking for Asian. Now if when you look it up and you go, I can't remember which one I looked up the other day. 44. No, that was Europe. Like you see the stories in the back of the book that say European or East European. There's 44 countries in Europe. When you see that in the back of the book, that's incredibly important because Byron's not going Germany. He's going European. You figure out what country. Now, how are you supposed to figure out that country? By using the book. You got to go through all them damn ferries until you find, man, is this connected? This, but if you on to something, like say you're on Margaret Mitchell, Gone with the Wind, is mentioned in the book. Oz is in this. Where was she at? Atlanta, Georgia. What was she? A writer, right? FDR is part of this, and where he died in Warm Spring, Georgia, is just south of Atlanta. That is a connection to this, but not in the verse, not in the poem, but in the history. When you start checking on FDR, so on and so forth. But Margaret Mitchell, you'll go when she did Gone with the Wind. People used to go, "Why is it? She's supposed to be a Southern belle. This is in Atlanta during the Civil War." People said, "Why is this so Irish?" And she goes, "Because I'm Irish." The lead character, her name's Scarlett, Irish name. And the book tells you the Irish and Scottish fairy, they're your pair no matter where you find them. If you go, hey, that's Irish. Well, it's Scottish too. Those two are always together. You got to figure out the rest. That pair is always a pair, whether it's in Houston or anywhere else. But you got to use fairies. You got to use them.
Could we dive into the painting a little?
Yeah, go.
This is like, I do, as you guys know, like, I think this is the best painting out there, but just, I think it's important. I think I could be wrong. Why is he doing these things he's doing in the painting? I think you have to, because the eye, we tend to like look at something and make an assumption about it. And that is a very dangerous thing to do with JJP. Because what he's showing you that kind of looks like this is like, oh, that's what it is. Like, this is a pedestal, right? Well, I mean, yeah, it visually kind of looks like that, but like, he's got all this. It's a map. It's roads. I don't know what the hell it is, but then there's not. There's nothing down.
So long, I never.
There's nothing down here.
That's the base of a statue. The right underneath the red stuff.
It took me 2 years to figure out that Roanoke is spelled there by using, the bubbles in Boston were O's. So if you go up to the hand on the left, that's the R. Then you have the O. And then
Eh.
where the hell did I see the N?
I think if he's
I
going to
had it on
spell
a photo one time.
if he's going to spell something, it's probably all in one spot. Anyway, so just like this, I think the answer, if you're in the right spot, this stuff makes sense. Okay,
Yeah.
why is there nothing down here below his name? And there's all this up here. This to me would be water. There's nothing in here. Maybe. But it's so symmetrical, you would have to be looking through something. So anyway, but look at the connection points up here, right? These crossbars.
Yeah.
Like this just kind of goes right into the armor, but over here he's got this bubble on it.
Well, you see the gem's offset too from the center of the armor.
Yeah, the gem is offset.
I always stared at that.
Look up here. It's these two like gray semicircles that are supporting this crossbar. But over here, you don't have that. Why? This means something. So if you can decipher this, you're on the right track. If you look at it and you think, well, it's just crossbars on this scarecrow or guy with armor. Like, no. But there's so much detail on this one. You know, like, again, I'm comparing and contrasting. I'm looking at this hand. And Justin correctly points out, look at how in shadow this one is. There's hardly any detail in this one. It's like these ridges of what he's showing you as armor. It's got to be something else. It's not. This isn't just armor on a guy's hand. Okay, it could be 2 or 3 things, right? He's got one dot here, and then there's little dots on this little outline. I see like 2 or. What's that?
There's a bat right there.
Bat?
You see a bat right there.
That's a bat.
I guess.
Yeah, that's a bat. There used to be a bat research facility on Roanoke Island. I think it's at the there's like a
maybe
animal preserve there.
Yeah, you gotta have something with the bat. There's a bat.
Now look at this. Now look at this one by contrast. He's got what looks like this would be leather, I guess, underneath the actual armor, maybe here, kind of, right? And then he's got dots here and more dots over here.
You got 11 right there, and that's
that's a bird's hand.
You know, what's this thing in here? What's this?
That's a bird's hand. Look at it.
It's more than that. It's got to be. That's my point. Is this is depicting probably like an overheads from somewhere, a map-like feature. But this means something.
Yeah, a lot of that, JJP said a lot of that stuff is just distraction. See, and it makes us do exactly what we're doing right now.
No, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that.
Look, go back to the right behind the wrist on the armor's left hand, other side.
This one?
Yeah.
No, I disagree with that entirely.
It's the
right
armor
there,
guys
right there. See that? See the 1-1, verse 11. That's what it is in the book.
Where's 1-1?
See the dent? Go just to the left of the dent.
Here?
No, the other side. Other side. Other way. Right there.
Yeah.
11. This is an 11?
Yeah, that's what I see. No. It's verse 11 in the book.
No.
That can make sense.
11.
I don't.
Why not? Why not?
Because they're different. They're different sizes.
That's Palancar.
He's a surrealist.
Ain't gonna put a line at the bottom and a little notch at the top to go, you know, 1 and a 1. That's exactly how Palancar does it.
JJP is a surrealist.
Is to count.
He's
okay. How about
no? Look at this. Look at this. Let's find.
So
let's find a 3 in there somewhere. So it's painting 3. There's 3 little bars right next to the 11.
Uh-huh.
There's an E.
Come on.
But look,
you see
it's
the
like looking
there?
It's like looking into a cloud.
And see,
I think you have to be
4 is
very careful.
Painting.
You have to be very careful. Now this is a real structure. This clover here. What the hell is that?
Yeah.
That looks like a palm tree.
Go down a little bit. Yeah, let's see the whole thing. So that whole thing is something.
Yeah, I mean, so what are these buttons here? They mean something, folks. These aren't just decorative buttons on this armor.
Wait.
I think
Go
so.
up a little higher. Go up a little higher. Look, 1, 2, 3. Painting 3. Come on, how many
All right,
threes you gonna see in
how
there?
about this? How about this blemish here in the
That's
armor
where the
and not
treasure
over
is.
here?
That's where the cask is buried.
That's gallbladder removal.
No, because the finger's not pointing there. It's actually pointing to the gem. And I pointed this out to you guys before. Is this actually looks recessed to me?
Well, you see the skirt there? Okay, so north of Kill Devil Hills, there's a place called Red Wing.
Yeah, that's a bird.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Now, are those bird wings? He just didn't detail the feathers.
Those are birds. He shoved an eagle bird up in that thing. Okay.
Yeah.
You can go ask
and then the outside looks like a bird's tail, like if a bird.
Next time one of you guys talk to JJP, you tell him I said that and see what he says.
These are.
I'll guarantee it.
He ain't gonna talk to us.
I guarantee it. I'll ask him myself. That's a bird stuff.
I don't know.
This is my favorite painting, by the way, because this is so interesting.
Yeah,
I think
it is.
Palancar said this is his favorite as well.
Hey, so where's this guy's graves? You have to have a grave in this picture.
If I ever had the money to buy one of the paintings, this would be it.
Yeah. How about this over here? What the heck is? What the heck is that? It's not over here.
Well, some of the
do you think
different?
Well, I mean, look at the arms. The arms.
Do you think? Do you think that was? Yeah, I mean, the struts are different. They're just totally different. Why is he depicting these with these?
You know what they look like? They look
have
like the crutches FDR used. That's the way crutches looked back then. They were a pole up under the arm, and then they had one handle sticking out. Not like modern crutches.
Okay, look at this guy.
You also, when someone breaks their arms and they end up like in a position like this, they're braced. You know, everybody knows about FDR and his brace. That's the stuff I go, you know, it's bracing. It kind of, you know, it looks like the strut underneath a wing. That helps support the wing.
You guys know about the Red Cross Knight?
No.
Edmund Spencer, the Fairy Queen. So in the beginning of the book, they reference the Fairy Queen a few times in reference to England. And so obviously they're talking about this puzzle. Well, the Red Cross Knight is the main character of this epic poem by Edmund Spencer, who was friends with Raleigh. And he wrote this poem called the Red Cross Knight. And a lot of people think that is being depicted in the imagery, that the character you see here is
the
Red Cross Knight.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
But see, he'd be a British poet.
He's a British poet.
You're gonna get. Yeah.
So you tell me that's a fictional character, like in the image. Yeah. And I agree with you. Because in Florida, I see Don Quixote.
Yeah, Don Quixote is definitely part of the Florida puzzle. And I think he does this intentionally. I think Byron is like using myth and where myth and history kind of combine to create this fantasy / historical journey that he puts.
A lot of that folklore, people used to believe it. People still believe about the witches and vampires. And
I think that there's a main character on most of those pictures, like somebody from a book.
Don, you know what? Here's what's significant about Don Quixote. Okay, that's a Spanish author. And historians say that the novel Don Quixote was the first novel ever written.
Yeah, blockbuster.
Yeah, so it's another first. St. Augustine was the first permanent settlement. Yep. Roanoke Colony was the British's first attempt. Yep. But then when he goes to other puzzles, like the Spanish, when you use the ferries, so the Spanish were probably, in the Scandinavian Vikings were probably everywhere before anybody else. The Spanish were actually off the coast of California. They mapped that. They were the first to see San Francisco. So even though the Spanish might not have anything to do with the San Francisco puzzle, they do with its history. So the ferry is going to be present in the history. And when you read it, you figure that out. But they were in New Orleans before the French were there. The French just decided to build a settlement. And, the book tells you, the French are with the Spanish, and then wherever the heck they're at, it gives you clues like the French were scared away by the sound of the conquistadors' weapons clashing. So it's telling you the French left, but where'd they go? Did some of them stay there? Did we know the French history of St. Augustine? What is the main three histories of St. Augustine, Florida? Spanish, British, French. Simple as that. You come up here where I'm at in Jacksonville, right up the road, the Huguenots. We got Huguenot Park. We got the French fort that's actually in the river now, but there's a replica of it. Up here in Fort Caroline, which is what it was called. The Spanish were down there. The French were here. And it was all the anyway, who did it? Timucuan natives, different sections, but up here, Silo was in St. Augustine. There was different chiefs here. So it all connects. The British tried to take St. Augustine multiple times, but the book tells you they fled. And every single ferry that you read in the first voyage, they all came to the East Coast. Nobody came in for the Pacific, and everybody migrated west. And eventually, just like real history, we were in the East Coast, and then we did that expansion west, all the Native American stuff, Teddy Roosevelt, Rough Riders, all that. And, stuff like, so the desert imagery of like the Houston painting. This was a clue of that when the book mentions the Middle Eastern Persian that in African that's known for their deserts. Okay, so where's the desert in America? Southwest. That was a clue of take this painting, and I'm not going to East Coast New York, the northern half of the United States. I'm going down to Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona, West Texas, Middle Texas, that area. That was a clue. All that desert imagery in that painting of Houston is a clue that you need to be somewhere where the desert is. And that's the reason Byron used Middle Eastern, African, and all that. Persian. And you got to figure out, okay, Persian. Who the hell were the Persians?
Or Arabi, would people call it Arabi?
Yeah. So when you look in the paintings, like y'all were talking about out the window, look at the paintings. Look at the St. Augustine painting, but that's a Spanish conquistador. There's the Spanish painting. Then you got to look through the verses. Where if you were first starting the book, which one of these is the Spanish verse? Well, Siloy in the margin, and a lot of people don't believe it, but that is a trick of wordplay, and hiding and doing a scavenger hunt is running, lighting up sentences to have something running down, spelling something else. Siloy, where was he? St. Augustine, Florida. Okay, there's my painting. There's my verse.
So, guys, one of the things I did here, and this is just a couple tricks, is when you're used to looking at something, like, so I studied art for a while, and one of the exercises was, if you take a picture of a person's head and you try to recreate it, right? It's always oftentimes very distorted. Now, what's interesting is if you turn that head upside down so it doesn't look like a head in your mind anymore, you can draw that a lot better. Like, go ahead and try that experiment with something like small. Spend 10 or 15 minutes and you'll see your ability to recreate the lines and make it more match what you're looking at. It's like, if you get a score of a D on one, you're doing a B, right? You can go levels better. And so I do think that's an important thing that you could do here, looking at these paintings all the time. Invert them, reverse them. The San Francisco painting needs to be flipped to the right 90 degrees. So I'm just saying, we're so used to looking at this painting a certain way, change it up. Because now all of a sudden your mind isn't seeing a guy in armor doing this. You're seeing just the shapes and some of these things that we're talking about that weren't obvious before. Now, all of a sudden, when you put the thing upside down, you can see it a lot better. So it's just a suggestion how many hours have we spent looking at these things, right? I mean, days.
It's better than a suggestion. You have to do all this. You're right. I've done this myself. I've used black lights. I've folded over the pages.
Yeah.
I've held the paintings up to like this, like, because you got one on each page. I've held them up to the light like this to see something on one side shines through the other side and gives you some kind of clue.
Yeah, it's just things become more obvious sometimes when you do this.
There's 50 plus techniques Byron could have used to create this book. And when I figured out 42 of them, like where I got into secret is because I went back and I did a little bio on Byron. Like, how difficult was he? Smart enough to make this book difficult? Yes, he was. He's way smarter than I am. And as I went through, like, what techniques could I use for making a historical? He even hid the fact that this is a kid's book and it's science fiction. It's not. The only thing that is fictional about this book is his use of overlaying fictional folklore fairies and using them metaphorically to represent real immigration to North America. And two, this ain't a kid's book. He felt the kids would eventually go to, which I guarantee you they would have. Dad, what the hell is this? Hey, get the family involved. And he even said in an interview that he was hoping to get families outside. So he's been deceptive on everything. It's easy. No, it's not. And he says in the book, there's a great word in there. He says, you got to be playful. And that we talked about that earlier. Playful is where what Palancar said about the deception and, the Liberty Bell made people go to Philly. You can't get mad about that. It's part of the journey. And you're like, what? Brian Zinn probably went, oh,
well, that's what I think. Liberty Bell. This one makes you think it's Roanoke when it's someplace else that has Roanoke type stuff there, like type history as well.
No, there's too much stuff to Roanoke. And, even when you get to Roanoke Island, you have to figure out the lost colony play, Waterside Theater, where people getting arrested at, because that's not the spot. I used to think it was there too. I'm not smarter than anybody else, and I don't ever want to come off as being a jerk on the page, but the book's going to tell you where you need to go in the end, and you just got to keep figuring stuff out. And there's so many layers. I never even had a chance to count, like, how many different little things did I have to decipher before I got where I got. I lost count. I mean, New York took me 5 years, and I ain't kidding. I was working on that literally every day. And if not physically looking up stuff, I was thinking about it every single day. And eventually you got to have a topic or a subject. And, if you take this painting and that verse and you chase a bunch of French crap and you go, it's Roanoke Island, but I'm not going to use British. I'm going to use French. You're not going to find nothing, because everything you're going to run across that has connective clues in the poem is just going to take you right back to the British. You're going to try to get off that British path. It's going to put you right back on it. I mean, in the front of the book, and he's not really explaining what you need to do. He's kind of even hiding that. And when you're selling a book and you're hoping it would sell hundreds of thousands of copies, but 42 years later, if this book had sold 100,000 copies, we would still be where we're at right now. The only thing I did different was I went, how do you create a book like this? Because Byron was a publisher. He does books, so he would probably know this. Maybe he got help from everybody involved with the book. But I said, how do you do this? And Mark, you were right. You pick a spot. Like say if I was here in Florida and I said in Jacksonville and I said the Thomas Jefferson statue that's downtown on the waterfront. That's where I start. Now I have to do all this research about Thomas Jefferson, why Jacksonville used to be called Cowville. So I'll put a cow in the painting, and you'll go, man, there's Thomas Jefferson statues all over the place. There's multiple places. There's a Jacksonville, North Carolina. So even when people get to Jacksonville, hey, Jacksonville, Florida, No, there's Jacksonville, North Carolina too.
I used to live there.
You ever seen how many cities in America are named like after foreign countries, like Paris?
Yeah, it's crazy.
And they're named after Paris, France. They are named after Paris, France.
Even Philadelphia, all of it's named, but for something else.
Yeah, exactly. And it's you work backwards, and then you go, oh, Thomas Jefferson was here, and they've tried to change the name of Jacksonville because Thomas Jefferson was involved, with some stuff with indigenous tribes people, and so it's like they've tried to cancel him, but you got to go through all that history, and all that history is also in the book, and Byron's used all of it. I mean, I tell people that I had some people I was taking to the airport the other day, and the lady was very interested in the book, and she goes, "Oh, I'm going to get a copy." I said, "Good, get a copy." Josh Gates even said, get the secret book, go crazy, start taking therapy. It will weigh on you, but Byron's just being playful. And they'll take you, and you'll learn all this shit, and you'll get to this point and go, this doesn't have nothing to do with anything. You know where you're at? You go right back to where you started and go, oh, I know. But once you get to the end, and it's impossible for me to explain, when I see someone go, I think this has something to do with it, I immediately go, oh, I know what to look up. Let me see. Is there a fairy connection in that? Oh, yeah. Because that person with Milwaukee, I was like, damn, I've been there too. I was like, damn it. But
so you think that's right? You think they're right?
Yeah, we're just kind of looking around to see where we think it might be buried there. But I said, if this is right, metaphorically, I'll be able to find him in the book. And that Idaho story, which is the only thing I'm going to give away, has something to do with Milwaukee. And I don't know. There ain't a lot of crap going on in Idaho, so someone might be able to figure that out.
I can see that.
But it's one again, and the place, it's nothing easy. It's a big area, and it's like where?
From that's that dig site, you should see what's in the painting. You should see.
Yeah. But I'll give this other clue. I'm opposite of that. Lot of this stuff. Okay, I'll give this great clue from Milwaukee. People are going to love this. John Michael. I considered him a friend. I never met him. We chatted a lot. I went too up by North Point. He was at the Lion Bridge, and he was at the Lion Bridge because of the poem. He was being literal, like Mark likes to do. But it's not at North Point. It's not at the Lion Bridge. And JJP said Josh Gates was close, but that's not true. He wasn't. When you see the bridge, all that stuff in the poem, it's all metaphorical. There is an actual bridge, but it's not in Milwaukee. It's a metaphor.
It's not in Milwaukee.
Huh? No,
you just said it's
the bridge it's mentioning. It says below the bridge. It's not an actual bridge that you're going below.
At some point, I'm going to reveal to you a hint about Milwaukee that I think you'll find rather humorous and interesting.
Okay.
But hey, could we take a look at this? I just switch it up a little. I want to talk about this at the time.
I'm going to take a break. I'll be back in a second.
All right.
Okay. I read it. It sounds logical. You did that, Mark?
I put this together, yeah. This is just like kind of off the cuff stuff, but filters, you of course have to be very careful with them because there are dangerous ones, right? And so I outlined some of those here, but and I talked about this before, safe filters. JJP uses multiple meanings in the painting imagery.
Yeah.
I think you should assume what you're looking at has at least two meanings, could have more. For example, if I look at Ask in Charleston, it's the outline of Fort Sumter. It's also Teddy, and it also has clock hands. he's mashing up all these
I don't agree with
ideas.
That, I don't agree with the Teddy Roosevelt thing. I think you got pareidolia on that one.
No. Showed them side by side. He's the only sitting president.
Pareidolia going on, and I think that's the case.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't see Teddy Roosevelt in that painting either.
He's the only sitting president to ever visit Fort Sumter. Do you think it's coincidence?
That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. I got another president that visited.
That is
Gardens. So
that's one of the easiest ones out there, I will tell you, in my opinion. But if you don't agree with that, that's fine. However, the idea, the concept, there are many things being depicted in that mask. Would you at least grant me that?
Oh yeah. But I'm saying around White Point Gardens, there's been plenty of.
It's not just a mask.
So which one are you talking about? That?
All right. So multiple meanings, right? So when people look at something, especially something large, like again the in here, and they're saying this is a wave. This is a big wave.
I mean, it is a wave.
I'm going to tell you, no. This is not a wave of water crashing down.
Yeah, it is.
It's not. It's too large. It's giving that impression, but that's not really what he's depicting here.
I agree with that, but I think it's a couple different things. But it's definitely trying to be a wave.
Yeah, I mean, look, just a wave.
It's metaphorical.
I understand that. My point is, this is more than. Look real close. If you look real quickly at it, you'd say, "Oh, that's a wave crashing over and it's spraying up."
Yeah.
I guarantee you, that's not what he's depicting here. You're not at the ocean. You know, to see it this way, you'd be on the beach somewhere. Like
It'd probably be around the Hudson River, in my opinion.
Look at these 4 dots lined up as an example. Rarely do things in nature align symmetrically like this, right? Well, so I'm just saying, like, this is not random that he put these 4 dots here. These mean something.
So what does it mean to yourself?
Well, this is from the dig spot. You look over these trees that actually bloom white. But this also is these are stylized trees. I think anyway, this is the bridge.
That looks like an old Chinese dragon right there. You see the head sticking up. You see the eyed mouth.
Just saying, like, people see like a some kind of right. No, I don't think so. I don't think this is some lion doing this.
Yeah,
in any case,
seen dragon imagery with the real short nose. I mean, you see an eye, you see teeth. I mean,
my point
could be anything.
My point is, looking at something, it probably has more than one meaning. Okay, yeah. So if I look at that thing and I say, "Well, this is a wave crashing in the ocean," I'm going to tell you that's not right. It might be what he's giving you a sense of. But there's deeper interpretation and things going on in here. As I mentioned to you, you don't see 4 dots lined up in an ocean wave.
I think
you just don't see that.
Above it, you're talking?
There's so many other details to pick apart, and I wouldn't get lost in the little things.
It's not little, though, is my point. My point is,
don't know until you know.
It's there on purpose. Why would he depict this ocean wave, which people seem to think it is, and then line up these 4? Then line up these 4 dots.
This is something near the dig site.
It doesn't.
This represents an object at the park.
Probably.
Yeah, I think you're in Battery Park. Like near the water. The rectangle up on top, I think, is the World Trade Center.
The thing people get lost in is locational. You need to find locational clues. Things have to be there. That's in the area.
Okay. Let's do this.
In any case, the whole point of that was there are multiple meanings. So if I'm looking at a big thing and I think, like, this is what it is, and you're not drilling down into this to try to understand it at a deeper level, you are missing it. I think that's crucial because now I'm like, oh, well,
though. Like,
yeah,
there's so
you
much
need
small
to.
details.
You
get
have
lost
to.
Let's
He's
back up
telling
and
you
do this.
something. He's telling you something in this.
Right.
If you just say, well, it's just a wave, you're missing it.
It's
Put the
more than
painting
a
back
wave.
up for New York.
It's not just an
you'll
ocean
unlock
wave.
the meaning when you're ready to unlock the meaning.
Yeah,
But,
we'll see how everybody's interpretation is different. So 20 seconds, Mark. Tell everybody what you think that is.
From my digs, these are the line of old trees that you would see. Again, this painting needs to be flipped. So as you look down from the dig site, you see these rows of historic trees that look like this. So
I agree. Those are also trees. You're right.
Okay.
I think these are trees, but I can show you a picture here in a second, an old one that I grabbed.
That's like a bush.
Hang on.
As you're standing at Von Briesen Park and you're looking out, you see over the water and you see over
there, but
because the trees, there's rows of very historic trees, and then the landscape falls off really quickly. So you are looking out over the tops of trees from the dig site. I think that's what he's doing here, but there's more to it than just that. If these are, I mean, these look more like, for a second, they look more like trees to me than they do an ocean wave when you start to look more closely at it. But these 4 dots here, yes, I think that's super important because it's not random. So what is he trying to tell you here? And you've got to dig into it. But my whole point of that was there's more here than just an ocean.
Like when you look at the verse, it says, "Look down, simple roots." You look to the bottom of the image, simple roots. It looks like trees.
It's very organic. This painting is very, very
tells you
organic.
to look at the trees. So there are some trees over there near the thing, probably.
All right, Douglas, you got 20 seconds. What do you think that water is?
What water?
Just
that
the
wave?
bottom of the painting. Yeah. What do you think it is?
I think it's a wave, and I also think that it's the trees. But there's also near my spot, there's actually a bench that looks like that, and it has bushes coming up over it. It's like it's a wave design that they put next to the Ulysses S. Grant tomb. It was a big deal because it's a real eyesore. They like painted chickens on it and stuff, and that's where you get the Japanese clue. There's a chicken there in my spot. I got everything.
Let me point out real quickly. This looks man-made in here. What is that?
Yeah, it's man-made. Where in the
this right here? I mean, this is actually the Verrazano Bridge with the Fort Weed here, and you're sort of looking down from Manhattan towards where I think it's buried. But again, when you're looking at this, if you just this is just a wave. No, this is a man-made object. More than likely, it looks man-made. Everything else is very organic except this thing.
Hey, I got proof from the book. I used the book this time. I'm usually not a book guy, but I found a thing in the book that helps me out.
Right.
So and this happened. I talked to Ben Asen, and it was with Eric on our first interview with Ben Asen, and I went back and watched it. And he told me, and I asked him a question about Riverside Church, and he said that they took a picture down 5 blocks down in Riverside Park at a monument. So that's where they took the picture with all the ferries. Was in my park, I think it is.
I know. I mean, Ben Asen confirmed something on that last podcast, and nobody caught it when he talked about the tower.
I would suggest people go back and listen to his interviews. He knows stuff, at least about New York. Yeah, definitely.
He didn't have to sign an NDA.
I don't think he knows it though. Like I don't think he knows that he knows, but he knows Byron, and you can get to the New York one with Ben Asen's help. In my opinion,
he did a podcast. He did a podcast with Karen and John Pyrad, and John Pyrad said, "Yeah, Byron had us all come meet at this restaurant," and Ben Asen goes, "Wait, I didn't get invited to that." John Pyrad had to sign an NDA.
I heard that. I heard about that though. I've heard about that.
So Ben Ace on the last podcast, he goes, yeah, Byron told me he wanted me to go to Tower Records in LA and in San Francisco. But the San Francisco photo wasn't used in the book. So right there, Ben confirms San Francisco and LA are the two cities of the secret.
Well,
and that's intentional in the book, but you have to figure out, is it LA? Like the Teen Angels makes you think? Or is it San Francisco?
Well, the thing is, I can tie all the ferries to my park in New York. So that's why I'm saying, like, he took the picture of all the ferries at my park. I think that means something.
Oh, is that where that photo was taken? Oh,
yeah.
I meant that. Yeah, I meant to ask Ben about that. All right, now let Justin go. Justin, what do you think it is? If you do New York.
I think the water there is your setting. You know, a lot of these paintings are showing you not just clues, but like the setting of where you're supposed to dig, like Mark was saying earlier. I think with this one, it's mostly setting in the water. My spot in New York is Battery Park. I think that the rectangle above is the World Trade Center. I also think that the ferry that takes you out to the Statue of Liberty is going to be visible. You know, ferries. I think there's a little play on word going on there. But I saw one great solve by a hunter on one of the pages, and he connected the poems written on the Statue of Liberty base. The poet was a Jewish immigrant girl. I can't remember her name, Ezra something. But she has like a plaque out there in Battery Park, and he was like, it's probably here. And ever since, I'm like, that was just a great solve. And I think he's probably right. Battery Park is my center of my interest for New York, and it's right on the water, right there, the south side of Manhattan.
That's a good plan. I don't mind Battery Park. I don't hate it.
It's not south of the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be.
Yeah,
yes, it does.
No, it does not.
Statue of Liberty, all he's using is the face, and that's pot. You know, you got that whole story about the Statue of Liberty in Jersey thinks it's theirs. It literally is on the Jersey side.
Yeah.
But then New York says, no, it's ours. That's a battle in history that you're going to have to read about.
Yeah, they finally sold it to New Jersey, and it was broken down as shit.
Look,
and
why
you got to go on the Jersey side to get on.
Yeah,
he's telling you look north towards the Isle of B.
So the Isle of B could mean a lot of things. It could mean Broadway.
But what's the most obvious one? The most obvious one is Bedloe's Island, the Statue of Liberty.
Byron does not do that. He does not use the obvious. That should be so obvious.
He doesn't use the obvious. Where's my boo? I'm gonna gotta play you boo.
All right, go back to the painting.
Okay, so hang on a second. So these filters I'm talking about in New York City, and I've said this over and over again. The Statue of Liberty must be seen from your dig site.
No,
it must be. It must be.
Byron's daughter said that.
And you have to be south of it. He's telling you this.
No.
Yes.
He could be saying look north towards Brooklyn, you know.
No, that's if gaze north towards the Isle of B is that could be from the dig
It's an
site.
orientation. No, it's right at the very end. It's got to be from the dig site.
So weren't you
I'm just saying, like,
tour that you have to. He's going to take you to all these amazing places. Why would he take you somewhere obscure like Bedloe Island?
The biggest thing you have to make
no,
that,
he's
the
referencing
Isle
that.
of B? What is the Isle of B?
When he says Isle of B, he's telling you two things. He's orienting you, and he's telling you you must be able to see the statue. So if you just take that at face value for a second and use the easiest answer, which highlights the Statue of Liberty, which I think you have to do given the theme of this whole book. But if you just take that on its face value for a second, that tells you have to be on the shoreline somewhere south.
Oh, what the hell is that?
So,
none of the images, right?
I think Isle.
The big structures are never near the dig site in the images. The terminal tower wasn't near the dig site. Couldn't see it.
You can barely see the statue from Von Briesen Park.
Barely, you can still see it. So the big structures have not been near the dig site like that.
Well, the bridge is this picture that I have in my background shows you, but okay, so here's a filter that I think you need on New York. The statue must be seen. It is the single most universal symbol for immigrants. How could he pass that up and just say, well, it's New York, and here's this big picture of this ferry that kind of looks like the statue, and then you don't see it from the dig site? That's a disconnect. It's not a safe bet in New York City.
I think you're probably right.
That's all. That's all I'm saying.
He would leave Manhattan.
That's just assumption.
Well,
so why wouldn't he leave Manhattan?
Because
you can interpret
worked
that
in Manhattan. He's very familiar with Manhattan.
So this is my danger zone up here. Danger zone. He was born in Brooklyn, so it's got to be there.
No. Okay.
That's a horrible
puzzle. Is New York?
I agree with that.
That's a horrible filter to lay over this. Is that
he put a rule in the book about not coming to anybody's houses involved with the book. So for that reason, he knew people would probably come to Brooklyn and look up him and see where he lived, or anybody else. Who else?
Yeah. So I think you have a harder argument to tell me the Statue of Liberty, is not involved in this puzzle, or that you can't see it. He was a genius. The whole theme of this book is migrants and immigrants. This is the single most universal symbol. He has so it does matter. It's a filter.
Let's go back to the painting.
It doesn't matter, but it doesn't matter the way you're saying.
The bigger picture is the statue is a centerpiece. It's the one symbol that encompasses the whole book. This is the whole book in one symbol.
I use the statues. The statue is important. I just don't think
you're not south of it. You're not south of it.
You don't have to be south of it. I don't think
you
that's
do.
Right.
He's telling you that.
I use the Statue of Liberty in my fault, so I'm straight.
Play on words.
That's open to interpretation.
Aisle, like a shopping aisle,
honestly, I think you would be looking north from the Statue of Liberty.
The statue is the most important element to New York in this book, in this thing.
No one's disagreeing with you there.
Yep. No.
Center.
You got to use that or Big Apple.
Center.
You got to give a clue to the city. That's all the Statue of Liberty's face is. But when you look at the history, is it really New York?
Look at your clues. Look at your answers to the clues through the lens of the statue. That, to me, for you guys, maybe not. For me, that's one you can hang your hat on because it's so iconic. It's so important to migrants and immigrants. It always has been, and it always will be. So if your clues if you're looking at answers to the questions and the verse and everything else through this lens of the statue, this starts to make sense. I think that's safe. You guys don't think that's safe. I think it is.
Where did they land in New York? Why was New York City founded? The Dutch landed there and they founded New Amsterdam right there at Battery Park. And there were Jewish immigrants there, and then they started, Russia.
Yeah, but when you look at that, for St. Augustine, you use Spanish. Roanoke Island, you use British. In New York, he used Russian, not Dutch.
If you're looking at this, if you're looking at the answers to these,
he used the indigenous tribe, but he didn't use the Dutch immigration.
But the Jewish story, which I think is what he's trying to tell with the Russian,
I agree.
Because his grandparents were Russian Jews, and that's how they came over to New York City.
Yeah.
No.
They are all tied in with the New Amsterdam story, the founding of the Dutch. They were there from the very beginning. So even though it was a Dutch colony, there was Jewish people there, and that's what swung.
Justin, and I agree with you, and people make this argument that the Isle of B could be all these other things. If you take the filter of the statue is something you can hang your hat on, and you look at this through that lens, it must be Bedloes. That's all I'm saying. From a probability standpoint, if I'm looking at this through the lens of the statue being super important in this puzzle, that has to be the answer. Everything else is a like way distant second or third.
Listen, like
So
you
Don't use
said
it as
earlier,
an image clue
it's a-
to match that up.
All right,
like you said earlier,
Show me the other
you have
images.
multiple meanings. That thing has multiple meanings.
Yeah.
Get him.
The paintings have multiple.
Well, look,
But I'm just saying, like, if you're saying I don't know what the Isle of B is, it could be Brooklyn, it could be Broadway, it could be Bedloes. I don't know.
It's a British reference. That's exactly.
You've got
what it
to
is.
look at this through the lens of the statue.
Britain was known as three things: Great Britain, Britain, and then the Isles of Britain.
All right,
Now, if you use the Statue of Liberty's face, you also see Indies natives in there. Now, Justin mentioned Dutch, East India Trading Company. That's the reason they landed and traded with the natives to get Manhattan. Who was the other Indies company? That was Britain. Indies is a key word to the East and West India Trading Company. There was one was run by the Dutch, the other was run by Britain.
Yep.
These are very crucial. You're right about that.
Yep.
Isle of B, Britain. Those are major clues in the poem. Just one word. But see, a lot of people, I mean, this went on for years. They're going Indies, Indian. No,
I think it is.
He's not saying trading company or using East or West.
Well, how are you going to work in? How are you going to work in
West Indies and Indians? I think they're both in it. I can tie them both to mine. It's all in mine.
How are you working in the Statue of Liberty as a centerpiece to this puzzle? If you don't, I think it's possible what you're saying could be right.
It's the symbolism of immigration.
But it's not probable if you don't make the soul a centerpiece.
I use it locational like you do, but different. I'm looking north from the Statue of Liberty towards Manhattan.
He's not telling you to do that.
Why not? Why not?
He's telling you look north at Bedloes. Right. Is what he's telling.
I'm going to give you guys a little New York history because I've lived in New York most of my life. Manhattan is called the Isle of Bees because the Indians gathered the Isle of Bows. That's what it was called when we came over.
He's right.
Okay, so he's saying look north towards Manhattan then.
I've never told anybody that. I've never told anybody.
You have to be south.
Well, Battery Park is on the south end of Manhattan, so you have only one direction to look.
It's not. It's not.
No.
Yeah, you did. That's why I said I like Battery Park because
so then how making the centerpiece of this puzzle the soul. That's a very safe filter.
The thing is, when you got to America, you went to the statue first, right? And then you went out. So I'm just going to the statue first, and then I'm looking forward. I'm just doing what the immigrants did.
Let's assume there's other symbolism in the book, in that painting that we can tie to.
Well, also, I believe, I'm going to say it, it's going to be crazy. That's Jesus Christ. Also. That's Jesus.
There's a religious aspect to every single puzzle.
That's Jesus. And the characters we were talking about earlier, that's Jesus. That's the Bible. He's the main character, the New Testament. Okay? That's what I think. And I can back it up. I got 100, if you go to the page, people, I got 100 clues to tell you where it's at if you want to check out my opinion.
From New York.
From New York, I got 100 clues that bring it to my spot.
And New York across its 5 boroughs, there are 1,700 parks.
So you want to know something crazy about that?
You got to get in the book if you're gonna figure out anything.
It's in the book.
It's not literal, and you need a lot more than the painting in the verse.
Yeah, I found it in the book too. I follow it all now. I listen to what Eric and Justin say about the book, and then I use their rules.
And see, the waves in that New York painting for me is I told everybody where my dig spot was, and that Byron mentioned the one that's possibly destroyed. New York is it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm going to say
the waves are
the best.
radio. Yeah, they're radio waves. It's heavy water. It all has to do with nuclear energy and the nuclear age. And if you look there in the wave, you see 235, which is you see a 235 uranium. Look it up.
Hey, I want to tell you something else about my New York park, Eric.
Go ahead.
That monument that he took the pictures of was made by Teddy Roosevelt. He raised that thing.
God, don't say Teddy Roosevelt. Is Mark gone? Yep.
So he's at the park, right? So my park also was at one time.
Teddy.
Yeah. At one time, the park that I think Eric, you're going to like this one. My park used to be called Camp Thomas Paine. And it was named Camp Thomas Paine from his Spirit of the 76 thing, that the book that he wrote and what he said. That's why they called it Thomas Paine.
I know everything about Thomas Paine. I haven't released everything. But see, like when the New York verse says, so where this place has been totally renovated, completely demolished, all the way down in the ground. When you were able to stand at the Wedding Garden, which is off Century Street in front of the courthouse, and you're looking at it, and it says gaze north towards the LB. You're in Thomas Paine Park, but the north end of it, which is to your left, north of you, is Thomas Paine Park, and right across the street from that, I think, was the Immigration Building. Thomas Paine is from the British Isles, and simple that, and it's his involvement. He was inspiration, which is a lot of the secret book. You know, Otto Lilienthal, he inspired the Wright brothers to, since he flew first, Otto Lilienthal, the German, the Wright brothers said, we're going to fly powered. And Octave was friends with the brothers and financed Otto. And plus he had a history of being involved in flight. But Thomas Paine inspired the letter that was written by, not really written by Albert Einstein, but it was him and a big group of scientists.
Thomas Paine is mentioned by name in the book.
And when the Manhattan Project started, which was America's race to develop the atomic bomb and basically split the atom, which are all in the paintings, the water's just metaphorical. Heavy water, waves, all that radio waves, that all that has to do with someone bleeding back on somebody. All that has something to do with.
I was booing you.
Oh, I thought I was having some negative feedback. The booing. Yeah, that's what it was. And Thomas, and I went through all that, and I said, I don't get this crap. So I had to go all the way back to the beginning and find out that Thomas Paine was the inspiration, because Einstein didn't want to tell anybody, but he knew how dangerous this was. And of course, he was an expert. FDR probably didn't have a clue what he's talking about. He said the Germans are trying to develop it. The German super weapon was meant to target Manhattan. That's where they were going to drop it. They weren't going to invade the United States. They were going to do to us exactly what we did to Japan. That's why the chrysanthemum is in there. It's Lady Justice. It's Justice for Pearl Harbor, Lady Liberty for immigration.
I agree. I got a connection too for that.
The Russian Eagle, everything that happened in the nuclear age, the Cold War with Russia, us beating Germany.
Across the street from my park is Oppenheimer's house.
Really?
Yep, right across the street.
I mean, the 3 eggs in the painting. So the egg and the chicken.
So hang on a second. Wait.
Let me finish. The egg. Byron talked about the chicken. The chicken was placed.
I got the chicken.
The demon core of atomic bomb to keep it from freezing. The eggs are a representation of the cracked Earth theory, because they didn't know what the atomic bomb was going to do when they tested it at Trinity. That's in the Oppenheimer movie. He says, well, it ain't going to blow up the Earth, is it? And Oppenheimer goes, I don't think so. And he goes, what percentage? He goes, about 90%.
So Eric, you're putting up
he's
a
like,
nuclear bomb that killed 250,000 innocent Japanese against the Statue of Liberty.
The keywords are all in the stories. It mentions 3 Mile Island, Geiger counters,
nuclear war up against the Statue of Liberty.
Well, no, all connected.
If you Google search nuclear in New York City, the first thing that pops up is the Manhattan Project. It's one.
Have you guys
seen? No. You want to compare the Statue of Liberty? The Manhattan Project is the most
It's not a book about killing as many people as possible. It's a book about immigrants.
Well,
he's used the Nazis in World War II in it.
Can I have a moment?
You can't say that the Statue of Liberty is more iconic than the greatest scientific discovery in human history.
Oh, yes, I can.
They're both in it.
This book is about immigrants. It's not about killing people.
The development of the atomic bomb was more important than us going to space.
Yes.
Look how, and Byron was a kid. He was a kid when all this was, when the kids used to, none of us are old enough to know it, when they used to do nuclear bomb drills. Look at all them stories connected to New York. And literally, you have to search the German, the British. That's because of Churchill. Churchill is illustrated in the painting, the big old cigar hanging out of his mouth. He's naked and standing on top of a ICBM.
Come on.
Hey, listen up.
That's illustrated.
All right, Justin has.
All right, go, Justin.
Justin's going to straighten us out here. Go ahead.
Well, Eric is 100% right about Byron's interest in nuclear arms. Because Byron wrote Guts in the first edition of Weird Heroes, which is all about him going back in time and stopping a nuclear bomb going off in Manhattan.
There you go.
So if you want to know Byron's interests, read Guts. You can buy it on eBay for like $5.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Justin. And I'm so pissed. I am so pissed. Byron said, they did that renovation. They didn't mess with Thomas Paine Park. The whole place. It used to have a road that cut through it. They deleted it years ago. The cut through road has the buses on it in the small businessman story of the book. But they got rid of that. The whole place is Thomas Paine Park. But inside Thomas Paine Park was Foley Square and the Wedding Garden. And Byron, I don't remember what year he said that, but in 2000s when they did that renovation, that's the only one he could keep tabs on. And he said he thinks one is gone. And I was pissed because that is the Indiana Jones and the Ark of the Covenant of the Secret. Oh. And that crap is freaking gone. And I was pissed to do all that damn work and then go. I looked at today, the way it looks today, and I thought that was the way it's always been. And then when I found I was like, oh no. Oh, and it's hard to find pictures of it. I found pictures of the wedding and I was like, wait, well, where's the wedding garden at? And even across the street, and this area is also called Federal Plaza. They redid everything. And
so I found, last thing, I got a boogie.
They dug to the subway. They took all the dirt out of there, and I don't know if they returned it or dumped it somewhere. But somebody in New York wants to go find out if they go laid that dirt under some roadway somewhere, or they dumped it in some New York state yard or city yard, and it's still there today. That's where your casket's going to be.
So this is your last challenge. I got a boogie. So if you're at Von Briesen Park,
boo,
and you're also at Battery Lancaster in San Francisco, these are your views. So they are bookends. They are mirror images of each other. So the challenge you have, this is what you're going up against. You're going up against bookend solves that look exactly the same. Okay? So this is what ends up. I got a boogie.
All right. Is it bedtime?
Bedtime.
Oh, no, we've been on here 2 hours. Lightweight.
Okay.
Yeah, we got
good stuff, guys.
We'll be back in San Francisco in June. Yeah, that's a real good podcast, man.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
We're getting a lot of stuff done. I mean, someone's going to find it, but God, it's nearly impossible. You think all the stuff I came up with is incredibly difficult. There's nothing easy. The hardest damn thing is actually digging one out of the ground. So everybody just had to pack a lunch. They'll be fine, but we'll be finding these eventually.
We got to dig holes, but man, it's a long shot. No matter what.
Night of Lights in St. Augustine was over Sunday, so I'm like, yes.
Hey, we need to get secret people together, like get like 100 secret fans, and we just crash in there and go dig it up and get it.
Yeah, right.
Secret army
They
stuff.
have the whole park at once. Let's go.
Yeah.
We got to get militant, have everybody doing a dance and somebody digging in the middle. They'll never see it.
Yeah, I mean, everybody just sneak out there, do what you got to do, and don't tear nothing up.
Yeah.
Bye, Mark.
Let's organize, people.
Mark just karate chopped right
Yeah,
out of here.
let's organize, and then we could write people's names off the list.
But
start with us though first, everybody.
Yeah. Well, I mean, within New York, everybody's got a different opinion, but I'm like, you got to find the topic to compare all the vague poem verses and all that stuff. The nuclear stuff's in there. If anybody just wants to look at New York, just go through your book and go to every single. I got so much. My book 2 is all falling apart. I mean, Ben Asen actually took a right back there is where the cask was buried. And there's stuff even on top. Once you get to even once you get to Thomas Paine Park, I was all in the north of it. I said, I don't see nothing that matches. Yeah, I wasn't looking at Foley Square. I wasn't looking in what else is in the park, which Pound Car said at the meetup, you need to pay attention to. It's not particularly like Mark thinks that you got to sit there, look around and see it. You might have already passed it. So you already know it's there. You don't have to see it.
Yours is definitely gone, though.
It is gone. It is gone. When I went back, and I remember when I said, oh, who the hell is Thomas Paine? Now, that park wasn't named after Thomas Paine in New York till 1977. And when you read in the history of that, it is because, God, in today's day, I want to get a T-shirt with Thomas Paine's face on it. He was the original social justice warrior, and it cost him everything. And he died in New York City. He's from the British Isles, and he became famous. He was writing speeches, and guys were running like he was writing down George Washington's speech that was actually taken by a carrier to Bowling Green in Manhattan. And that's where they announced, hey, we're going to war. The Revolutionary War was started. So his writings, there's 18 volumes of his writings, but 3 of them are important. That's the 3 vols. And the Indies natives still speak of him. That's poorly because the East Indies Company were the super rich. They were involved in slavery. Screwing everybody over, stealing their money, paying them crappy wages. And that's what Thomas Paine was all about. He was like, and even when he got into high society, he was still doing it. And they were like, hey, man, you're with us now. You need to shut up with this crap. And he said, no, I'm not. And that's why he ended up broke, poor. I even read this thing where this guy said every morning when he went to work in New York, he said, I used to pass Thomas Paine's window. And he said, Thomas Paine would be sitting there in a chair reading a book. And this is like way back in his time, but he died alone. He wasn't married, didn't have anybody with him but a doctor. And his life ended very sadly, but his writings, American Crisis, The Rights of Man, Common Sense is the one that made him famous. These writings were something that was an object of Albert Einstein. He was a fan of it. And he told people, I wrote that letter was inspired by Thomas Paine. And I had to go, I already found Einstein, the letter. So I was like, what the hell? Let me search the letter. I find it was inspired by Thomas Paine. And I went, is there a Thomas Paine Park in Manhattan? Boom. And where is it? It's in that photo in the Small Businessman.
Right.
And I went, holy crap.
Why would Ben take so many pictures in Manhattan if Manhattan wasn't a place of interest? I know they're based out of Manhattan, but he traveled to San Francisco, LA, here, there.
Well, you gotta think like Byron. How can you like you mentioned the ferry earlier, right? So say you land at the airport in New York. You take the tunnel, the bridge, which are all depicted in the book, or you ride the ferry, right? And the ferry shows the bride. Someone even told me that ferry that they took a picture on is leaving Manhattan. Well, once you got married, that's exactly what you do. The maitre d', he's a host. Now you got a maitre d' maitre d' can be like today. A maitre d' is like a DJ at a concert or a rave. The maitre d' is the guy that you talk to when you come into a fine restaurant. That's the French stuff, that throws in there. The maitre d', he's also, if you look at wedding planners today, it will say John Miller, host, maitre d'. He's the guy that coordinates everything. There's for some reason there's no groom mentioned that I can find, but the bride's what important, and we know that the men don't mean nothing. I said that looking at my wife. But these are other clues. So when I started, and I remember when I asked Jo Ellen, because I got her notes and it doesn't really say nothing about that, and I said she looks like a bride. She's got flowers. I asked Ben, I said, was that dress white? Yeah, I didn't realize that color picture was in the book. And I messaged Jo Ellen and I said, is she a bride? And Jo Ellen goes, word for word, she goes, that's just something I made from some extra material I had on my bench. That's all she said.
Yeah.
She didn't say, she said that because she can't offer any information, but that's all I needed to hear. I mean, she's not allowed to say anything anyway.
So you're saying that a bride has to be in New York?
And the bride, she's dressed as a bride metaphorically, because where do you connect the bride to? Where do you get married? You can't. He couldn't bury it inside the courthouse, right? So then I was like, so I started looking around the courthouse grounds. Where do you get married? And then I didn't realize there was a wedding garden out there, and I went, oh shit!
Well,
and the wedding garden's in that photo. That little clump of trees you see, that's the wedding garden.
The death flower. So there has to be some kind of death funeral thing in there too in New York.
Well, this is part. Okay, so we're looking at the entire timeline of the nuclear age. This started with the development and to the point where they detonated Trinity. So chicken, when Byron said chicken, there's a lot of references when you go to the nuclear world.
Yeah.
They're eggs. You see, they're blue eggs. One's Trinity, and then the other two are Fat Man and Little Boy. The fat egg is Fat Man. That's the first three detonations of an atomic bomb. One was one of them in Japan was an airburst. I think the other hit the ground, and Trinity was just off the ground. So that's that three that are around the gem. And you notice one's fatter and bigger than the other one. So you got Trinity in the initial test, which is that's Los Alamos Laboratory out in New Mexico. That's where they tested that. The chicken, the egg is metaphorically connected to the atomic bomb because they were worried that the term was they were worried that the atomic bomb would crack the earth like an egg. And if you look, one of the Manhattan Project patches, it actually shows a round egg. And then you see this lightning bolt that represents the crack. They were scared. They didn't know the Trinity test. It was actually 10 times more powerful than they thought it was going to be. They didn't really depict that in the movie, but when you see those videos of that damn thing going off and all the soldiers had the goggles on and shit, and you see they get blasted, that's when they went, oh crap. A lot of them guys had medical problems because of that. They were like, oh, we thought we were far enough. No, they weren't. A lot of those buildings you saw.
John Wayne and all of them got cancer from shooting a movie out there at White Sands where they did all those bombs.
Yeah, that area was contaminated and it's still contaminated today, but it's all about it. There's nothing set up to make you. They didn't build a Hotel 6 there. You know, you come there, you visit. It's like Chernobyl today. They go, yeah, you can go out there and look around. Just don't touch nothing. You got to don't be out there more than 15 minutes because you start receiving a dangerous exposure amount. But every single, 3 Mile Island, all this stuff, And that, where did it start? It started at 980 Broadway.
Right.
And then you look at it, all of the other stuff in the book when it talks about the with Germany, with the plays and all that stuff. It's metaphorical. The Manhattan Project started on Broadway. Where are all the plays and musicals and crap? Broadway. They call it Broadway.
Oh, and there's so many references to Wall Street in the back of the book. Almost all the New York pages have to do with the district. It's like, I mean, you can't read it.
All down in that same area. All down in that same area.
All the very last pages all seem to be about New York, and they all seem to be about.
Yeah, there's most of those stories in the book. There's British, and some of them, if you notice in the book, they're one story after the other in the book. 221, 222, which always bugged me about the book too, because you can go to that one right behind the paintings, and it shows where they're social, environmental, and it gives you the page numbers, but they're completely out of sequence. But then when you go to 221 and 222, they're all in order, but there's no page numbers. You were meant to go back and forth just to screw with you. I mean, that's all it is. Like, so I went to the one page and wrote all the page numbers on 221 and 222, so I didn't have to reference the front. But even that stuff on those pages where it says social, environmental, I mean, you can see the stories in there that say, forgot exactly what the term is, but it's like government. Those are all clues. Every single bit of that is a clue. And you got to reference all this. Where the hell that page is. You got to reference, all this stuff has to be referenced. But you got to, when you're referencing back and forth, so if you look at New York, right? So you got FDR. He's American born, but he's of British descent. That's also why he went to the Waterside Theater in Roanoke, because he said he was on the side of Britain because he was of British descent. This is the most important thing in history. Don't worry about them damn Spanish people down in St. Augustine. He depicted all that in Roanoke Island as the first. And it just depends on where you come from. He didn't want to talk about the Spanish. But when he comes there, you got Teddy and FDR. Everything, they were both governors in New York. They both, I mean, Teddy was a police chief, the local politics. Most of that stuff, when you see Washington, D.C., it's some kind of political connection. That's why it says D.C. But FDR's involved with that. He's British. Hitler. And you're using most all the fairies. You're using Mussolini of Italy, Hitler of Germany, the Emperor of Japan. You also got Churchill of Britain. And basically every country was involved in World War II, including the Africans, North Africa, Japan, the two theaters, Europe and the Pacific. And the conclusion of the Manhattan Project after it was tested at Trinity, they took all that stuff away from Oppenheimer with all those people because they simply needed him and all those people to develop it. Once they created that technology and went, boom, it works, they got rid of all of them because they didn't trust them. Because a lot of them were leftists. They didn't want Albert Einstein involved in the Manhattan Project because of his views and that he was a former German. He was a German citizen, but he denounced his citizenship and he took a job at Princeton. So that's, Jersey. Was Jersey part of it? Yeah. So the conclusion of World War II after Germany was defeated is we go over there and, FDR dies. Truman takes over. Truman and the Pentagon. He is, that it shows Eisenhower too. The Pentagon getting his hair cut. That's Patton. We know about his history of World War II in Europe and North Africa.
I think that's not only Patton, because obviously from the movie, Patton, the flag and everything is taken from the movie. But yeah. I'm
one of my favorite movies.
Huh?
Well, that's one of my favorite movies. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Patton with George C. Scott.
But I think that is actually depicting LBJ. I've got my theory with Charleston, with the Daisy and everything. I think there are some hints into LBJ and some. Basically, I think what he's trying to tell us is like look for an area that is heavily militarized. That's been heavily militarized. And that's why I'm at Fort Moultrie.
That's another war. LBJ, Vietnam.
Yeah.
You know, Byron's used, and you don't just take the LBJ and Vietnam. You go your topics. You got a president, you got a war, you got FDR, you got Kennedy, you got LBJ, and you got multiple presidents from Bush. A lot of them have had. Who was president during World War One? It wasn't Teddy. It was after Teddy. I can't remember. But this is the stuff. These are stuff you need to chase. Like, ooh, there's a topic: war.
Right. Because peace is such a running theme in the book. In both bookends, they mention peace being one of the main objectives. At the end of the Vanishing, that last little like poem that they write mentions peace, being one of the fairies, like something they hold in high esteem.
Sure. That's even attributed to Grant after the Civil War with the people of peace. It's like, you make war, and once you win it, that's an old, you're at war. FDR had to do it. Once the war is over, you have to make the peace. And that there's a lot of crap. There's a lot of tension after a war, and it's like other countries are like, hey, we were kind of, don't worry about it. It's over. And, East-West Germany, all the stuff with the Russians, the Patton history where he's like, well, we got our troops in Europe. We might as well go after Russia because they're going to be next. People didn't like his political views, but you know what? He was damn right. He was exactly right. That's why.
Oh, with Patton, that whole
Patton was smart.
Of the Pentagon being LBJ and everything. If you look at the picture, it's a dead ringer for LBJ. But I think the messaging there was you have a picture of Eisenhower sitting there while LBJ is getting his hair cut. You see him sitting there. And Eisenhower warned us about the military-industrial complex and how we need to handle on this, or else it was going to spiral out of control. And with the Kennedy assassination, Kennedy trying to stop the Vietnam War, him getting assassinated, LBJ pushing us full force into the Vietnam War. I think that
the Cuban Missile Crisis, when Russia tried to secretly move ICBMs over to Cuba, intelligence found out that he made a blockade, which was an act of war. He said, "You turn those damn ships around, or I'm going to sink them," and they did. That was Khrushchev. And if you, where the hell is he? There he is. There's Khrushchev right there. Big old bald head, smoking a cigar, and there he is again, depicted right there in the imagery. And then you got, he's sitting on a nuclear missile. Then you look over there, the RadNet. Look up an EPA RadNet and its connection to nuclear weapons. And we also had the CNETs. If you go to the glitches right here, the first computer, where the heck? I can't see. The first computer was actually developed to get target trajectories, basically where an airplane was, because this is all new science. And then when you're dropping an atomic bomb, because they didn't even arm these damn things until they got over the site. And when the B-29s took off, they were like, don't turn that damn thing on, because they were afraid, bounce on the runway. They didn't really know. So, they're coming up on target. Then the guy arms the damn thing, and it's like, okay, it didn't blow up. But they had a chicken inside the Demon Core so it wouldn't freeze. They gave the chicken feed so it wouldn't eat wires, but the chicken kept the core at temperature so it would detonate.
What? I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And the computer and the glitches, it says the glitches' bites are bigger than their bark. They love punch cards. How they first programmed that computer were like punch cards you used to punch in at work, for people that are old enough. They would put little holes in there, feed in the computer. That's how you program a computer. But you see Bell telephone symbol, they were involved in that. That's why you see the phone imagery in the New York puzzles of the Asian lady. Chinatown also has something to do with Thomas Paine Park and the dig spot because of Foley Square and Big Tom Foley. But the computers, if you go typographical terrors, okay, these the woolly mammoths have a connection to FDR as well. Supposedly, he served 50 million year old woolly mammoth meat at the Roosevelt Hotel in New York. But we never got to the photos I gave Mark, but I got one right here, and this is from FDR's desk. And if you look right here, I got it circled. You see right here? There's a woolly mammoth statue on his desk with another animal. And then Chicken Isle King's in the book. It's in one of the New York stories. Chicken Isle King was something FDR really loved. And Eleanor, and it's typographical terrors because Eleanor typed up all his speeches, and she made sure that they were free of errors. So if you take the T off terrors, you got errors. And the whiteout, which is for making corrections. She made sure everything was correct, so he didn't sit there and mispronounce a word or have a word left out. But the woolly mammoth stuff is metaphorical of him and his wife, and the Roosevelt Hotel, the dinner, and that's also in the Woolly Bully. That's why it's Woolly Bully. Bully Pulpit, Teddy, Woolly Bully, Woolly Mammoth, FDR. That story's both of them.
To anybody who doubts any Roosevelt connections, here's another book, Shlomo Raven. It was the first in his Fiction Illustrated series. But Roosevelt is a main character. Nope. He says Fred Roosevelt, which I didn't even catch that. Who is Fred Roosevelt?
Fred Roosevelt.
Who Fred Roosevelt is?
Yeah, there was a few of them. Well, Teddy was older. FDR is Teddy's fifth cousin.
Well,
but see, like
Byron
it's
obsessed with the Roosevelts. He's obsessed.
Oh
with
yeah,
nuclear bombs. Obsessed with Roanoke and lots.
FDR was president for 12 years, and he died during a portrait painting at Warm Springs, Georgia, which was they called it his second White House. But he had a stroke while the guy was sitting there painting him, and that you can see that painting online. It ain't even finished. I mean, but he was there because the hot springs were supposed to help him with his condition. But and also with the Queen. Okay, so FDR is the first U.S. president that invited the royal family to America. The Queen mother was best friends with Eleanor, and even after FDR died, I took over after FDR. He gave FDR's desk to Eleanor, and that's how it ended up in the museum. But FDR's library is in one place. The Georgia White House is a museum. I'm going there one day in Warm Springs, Georgia. It's in North Georgia by Atlanta. But he has so much connections, and also, everybody's heard about the Kennedys back in the 60s, Camelot with Jackie Onassis and all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Roosevelts were that before the Kennedys. They were considered royalty in America. FDR was one of the greatest presidents we've ever had. That guy, excuse my French, he inherited a shit show when he became president.
That's true.
What the hell do they call it? The Great Depression. Then he goes right into a damn war on two battlefronts. And I mean, he was trying to fake his, you'll see pictures. That's what I think that bracing imagery is. He had leg braces on. They had him in a wheelchair, but they used to try to make it look like he could stand up and wave from the train when he stopped at places to speak. But they said, little did anybody know that Eleanor's standing there holding him up. He was afraid of how people were going to think about him because, I forgot what he had. But it got to the point where he couldn't even walk anymore. He was totally wheelchair bound. So, but he said, I want to be able to stand up and shake people's hands. And he didn't want people to look at him as a cripple. He had so much work, but man, he had so much on his plate. And when you look at the Roosevelts, so there's this triangle between New York, Roanoke Island with FDR. And then Teddy's used out in Milwaukee because Teddy was standing in the back of a car when he tried to run for president again. That dude shot him. And
he kept giving his speech, right?
And kept giving the damn speech, even though they're like, Mr. Roosevelt, you're bleeding. He's like, man, shut up.
Mm-hmm.
And he stood there. And you could look at all those artifacts. You could see his jacket, his shirt. I think the bullet hit his eyeglass case. That's the only damn thing that stayed him. And it kind of deflected off, but it like hit him in the armpit. I mean, he was seriously injured. They said he stood there for like an hour. So 2 Roosevelts, but when you look at them stories, you'll see Teddy is right in your face.
Yep.
FDR is hidden because FDR is when it comes to, they both got their own history, but Teddy didn't have to deal with the stuff as a president that FDR did. No president in history has ever, probably George Washington, with the Revolutionary War. George Washington's also part of New York as well. Yeah, he's telling, the important, the Dutch come there, the Indies Trading Company, the Revolutionary War that occurred in the area. You got a lot. People walk by crap in New York and they have no idea. Like when I went to Charleston, I read that whole story about where George Washington, and I go there with my wife and I'm just like a historical geek. I'm like, George Washington actually just walked on this sidewalk. That's the stuff that I like going to. I like going like, hey, George Washington, in Jacksonville, George Washington ever been here? Hell no. I like going out here looking for arrowheads and stuff like that, which are pretty easy to find. But, I go to these historical places and I read that entire story in Charleston where all the stuff, you had the bands, the fireworks, all these places. I actually read George Washington's entire itinerary while he's there, all the people he met, where he stayed. I've walked past almost all those places. A lot of the bridges and stuff that are there now that there were barge crossings and stuff like that. But these were big ass events back in the day. And that's exactly, I always say, I tell this with pride because I believe truly that this is what Byron wanted us all to do. If you're not learning something, he would feel like a total failure. And he knows, the stuff you're showing in those books, Justin, it's like, there you go.
These are
yeah, I know about those books. And see, Justin's, hopefully people will pick those books up and go, oh, you see Crow and Tonin in that one, FDR in the other. This, and I don't, I get people get so mad at me and I'm like, send me messages. I'm like, listen, everything that I'm telling everybody I've gotten out of this. I'm not making any of this stuff up. People get mad because it's totally different from what they do. But I like when someone goes, hey, it's like, Justin, when you do that crap with the Energenie and stuff and out there, and I was like, oh, geez, nice. I love to see that. The person in Milwaukee, they're referencing stuff out of the book. I'm like, yes. That
can't wait to hear about that.
That whole nonsense that was created years ago and it's still regurgitated that you don't need the book. There's the front and the back. I used to think you needed the back because that's where St. Augustine came out of. And it's not that. It's all the words, all the stories, all the pictures, the Latin, the description of the gems. You got to read. Just get your highlighter like I do. You look at all these pages in here that I just have. Highlights, keywords. Then you go, what the hell do these all have in common? They all have a common theme. And that's it. You want to know how the secret works? That's it. He created this. He spent 5 years on it. You need a lot more than the painting in verse. Some people just don't have to use them because they recognize stuff. Then these people have what is significant historical knowledge of where they live. If you don't, I've never been to Milwaukee. I've been to Chicago. I've been to New York. I've been to Charleston. I've never been to Roanoke Island. I've never been to San Francisco or Montreal. I've been to Houston, Texas. But am I familiar with the history around and what is there to see? If someone did a painting and drew a bunch of stuff that was in Herman Park, would I recognize that? Hell no. Someone that grew up there and said, I spent all my teenage years, like Rob and his friends and his brother in Chicago. They've been by them places a million times. Hey, that's the water tower downtown. Yeah. That's how that works for some. But if you're not from that city and you didn't grow up there,
you're
going to need the book.
You got a home field advantage if you live there.
Yeah. And in the book, you'll come across stuff that's not even.
I believe that's true.
If you're familiar with the area, you go, damn, I didn't know that crap was there. Hey, I figured out, like, I never knew, like, we got a Ribault High School. The French Explorer, Ribault.
Yeah.
We got Ribault Avenue. I never knew those school and that street were named after early explorers. I always say, like, who the hell is Ribault? Yeah. Or there's a road over on the west side called Timaquanan Avenue. I knew it was the Native Americans, but I never knew the story.
Doubling back to the East India Company, one thing that blew my mind when I found this out, Ben Franklin wanted the American flag design to represent or to be similar to the East India Company. And that just blew my freaking mind. That
you know what he wanted our national bird to be?
The turkey. Yeah.
They got he wasn't in charge of that. What country are you from?
That, like, the flag that we fly didn't start with the revolution. And it actually goes back. Even Raleigh, when he sailed over, had that flag on his ship. One of the ships that, if you look at the recreation of Raleigh's ship, that's out there in Roanoke, it's docked in Roanoke, it has a green American flag on it, but it's not the American flag, it's the East India Company flag.
That's right.
And I'm like, wow,
and what way, if someone doesn't know that, what the hell was the East and West India Trading Company? This was the spice trade, slave trade, expansion. They were looking routes to the Indies.
Hey,
but back then it was about the what?
I worked for the Atlantic Pacific Tea Company before they went out. They were still around, the Atlantic Pacific Tea Company. Yeah. I worked for them.
The big thing back then was gold, silver, lumber.
They made it all the way to 2005-ish, 2006, all the way from back then.
Yeah.
As the first grocery store.
Yeah, it was the pelts. I mean, you see the beavers from Montreal, the beavers up in that's also the Wisconsin area, the Great Lakes. What were they doing? They were trapping. This was the early days. We got cargo ships that come back and forth. They bring cars and all kinds of crap and everything you can find at Walmart from China. But back in the day, these were the two companies competing to go. If you ever seen like The Office, if anybody's a fan of The Office, they had a guy in there and he was dressed as Ben Franklin. And he goes, chocolate? Where'd you get such a rare, thing to eat? And he's being historically accurate. People back then are like, chocolate? What the hell is chocolate? Cocoa beans? They didn't know what that was. But salt, all the spices you see in all the commercials that have to do with India, where they're throwing that's supposed to represent, saffron. That's the spice trade. At one time, people didn't have salt. The Jamestown colony in the tobacco, which is the filthy hobbit, someone's asking that in the question. Tobacco, like I said before, tobacco wasn't really known in Europe. So they started growing it and going back, and people were like, hey, bring more of this crap. So it became an export. That's Roanoke Island. If you look where the Jamestown colony was that a British thing? Was that something that the Indies Trading Company was shipping? Yes, it was. Simple as that. This was that was a place to grow tobacco.
The Opium Wars, the East India Company and the Opium Wars.
Oh yeah,
something that every single person should know, but sadly they don't. And that history repeats itself.
Exactly. I mean, it's about expansion in the early days. I mean, if you look at Mendez, if you look at, just the story of John White and the colonists, Sir Ralph Lane, Sir Walter Raleigh. The Queen was sending them over here for expansion. That's all you had to do back then. Find a place. Hey, there's people here. Throw them some beads. And we're going to build a fort. And we're going to claim this for England. That's all these people did. French New Orleans, Spanish St. Augustine, Roanoke Island, Jamestown, British. The 13 colonies. The British dug their heels in. Spanish were down there in Florida. That came later. They only went so far south.
South Carolina fought for the British.
Yeah. I mean, there's even a slave history to 13 colonies where if a slave got free of the 13 colonies, all they had to do is go down to Spanish-controlled St. Augustine, and they were a free man. Yeah. That's the major African history of St. Augustine. I think Byron wanted you to learn, including the civil rights stuff.
This is why Osceola is so important. Osceola, I believe, is such a central figure in the Charleston puzzle because he was a Seminole who fought in the Seminole Indian Wars, where a lot of the escaped slaves had gone to Florida and they were fighting the federal government for their freedom.
Sure.
He was captured and held at Fort Moultrie, right outside of Charleston, which is my spot out there.
They like to take them on they took the native chiefs on display for the public. It was like, hey, look at the big African lion we bagged.
He mysteriously died in their custody.
Yeah. They got him under
all the tribes,
and then they locked
all
him
the tribes
and they buried him there.
They tricked him, and then they locked him up, and he passed away there, right there at Fort Moultrie.
They all realized that the federal government had none of their best interests in mind. That's what caused all this. I have Creek Indian in my family on my mother's side, and they were
Blackfoot.
They were wiped out. They were one of the ones. They were just like that. From what I heard, they were all killed.
The Blackfoot. They make pencils still. Blackfoot pencils.
They got out. They realized at one point they're getting screwed. The natives in Manhattan Island, which is named after, it's a name that derives from the indigenous tribe there. They didn't realize they were selling that. See, the best thing they would have done is like in Tampa when they shot Ponce de Leon with an arrow. It's like, get the hell out of here. They already knew what was going down. Hey, it's the white guys again. Right. And when the settlers moved out west, it was the same thing. It was their land. They defend it just like if some foreign invaders came in our country right now. But I got a buddy. He's real. He's heavy Native American. He's like he just hates it. I said, listen, dude, it's in my family too, but it was a war and you lost. It's like, I'm sorry, it was bad on all sides, but people, if you guys see that Kevin Costner movie Horizon, there's a lot of crap in that movie. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he put in there. Like, it showed early settlers, getting butchered. And I said, a lot of people are going to get mad about this, but he's depicting history correctly. You hear a lot of that. Everybody wants to tell their own history. Say, oh, we got screwed. Well, there's things that happened out west. That's the reason all those Indian wars occurred.
Well, I think that the real messed up thing was that the British came here and they founded their colonies and they worked with the natives and they set treaties, and the natives were effectively citizens of the king.
Oh yeah.
But when the revolution happened, all of that was upended. So all those treaties were null and void. All that was, but to the natives, they're like, you guys are the same. You're still the same people. They try
to impose religion on them. They tried to make them dress differently. At some point they realized that, man, this ain't. And you got to imagine to them, they got sticks, bows, and arrows, and they're getting shiny beads and stuff they'd never seen before. They were probably like kids in the candy store at one point, but they got to the point where they realized, they're just getting hooked.
About it. If you think about it, you talk to a lot of people say they got Indian in them, so they had to like them somewhat because all of us got Indian in us.
Yeah. So, going back to Roanoke, John White said when he first arrived, they were so nice.
Yeah,
they wanted to trade. But then he said tensions grew.
Back then they used to just kidnap their wives from each other. But
if you read the story about John White and them, one of the British people started a fight with them over a silver cup or something, and ended up killing a few of them.
And so easier passed on. Hang on, y'all keep going. I'll be right back.
But I think that's why he put it in, all this stuff about Native Americans in the book is because he wants to teach us about the genocide, about the wrongs that were done.
I agree with all that. I agree with all that. Absolutely.
And like, yeah, when I learned about the East India Company being the inspiration for the American flag, and then I learned about the East India Company, that really blew my mind because it's like, oh, you think about corporate crime in the 21st century. Well, it didn't start in the 21st century. Big business has been committing crimes against humanity for as long as like they've been writing history, basically.
As long as there have been cities, I believe, probably.
Yeah, something like that.
Like it's natural. It's a natural thing.
It is, but it's the worst part of our nature. Greed and
it's just a different version of what we got. They had a government back then and all there.
So I think that's why Byron put that in there, is to remind people of the history that's being whitewashed, that's being buried.
Right. I agree with all that.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I don't think it's just by, I don't know, some odd quirk that he put all that stuff in there. That's why I believe that there's a 13th cask that's about the Native Americans.
So Mark, you, and me are all trained artists.
Heck yeah.
So, this show has the most trained artists around on here. So, because also, like, there's a JJP part to this puzzle, heavy. Right. It's like Byron's is diverse in some of the stuff in the image, and JJP focuses on the image. But there's stuff in both. And they both work to do this, even if JJP didn't know what, you know what I mean? He was just painting what he told him to paint, which I don't. JJP knows where some of them are, if not all of them.
Oh yeah, I think he'd have to, just given like the amount of clues that he
has the artist, right?
Yeah.
As the artist, you would know. You would know everything.
To paint something that was going to encapsulate all of the details of the location and the scenery and the history and everything. You'd have to know quite a bit.
I think every image has some kind of inspiration. Some of them got even authors, like artists connected to them, because they're across the street from museums. There's an art theme to this also.
Right. Yeah, I think with the Roanoke one, someone had pointed out some Picasso sculptures and stuff that were like, oh, that's a direct hit. Like that's like exactly what you see. The person like holding the bubble is like a Picasso sculpture he had made. Or
Ben Asen was talking about something with Byron, and they were talking about Edward Hopper. So I also believe Byron was in the art history. You know what I mean? As well. He knew his art history as well as JJP did.
Right. I can definitely see that. I know.
From an art perspective,
This is a lot of stuff that Byron, they got NDAs because they helped Byron add stuff to this book. So that's why they can't give away anything. If they said, if they were just sitting around, I think it was probably that dinner John Pyrad was talking about. But that's where he said, you need to draw this. I need you to draw, like for New York, draw a cruise ship, draw a missile, draw an EPA RadNet. Just look up EPA RadNet and how it connects to what it's for. You'll see
never
the
got that reference with the net and the. Like I see,
EPA and then net. You see the net imagery.
I got to look that up. Yeah, because like I kept trying to figure that out. I'm like, what in the heck is going on with this little EPA plane? I don't know. So
it's like Houston. I've went all through the book. They're not all the same. There's different ways you got to work them. Houston, it's at the Dick Dowling statue that used to be there at the south end entrance of Herman Park. You used to be able to cross over the roads there. The verse says in the middle of four alike. It's in the median in the middle of four alike. There's two lanes on one side. There's two lanes on the other. No one was looking at the south end of Herman Park. And then the stuff you brought up about Houston. So when you compare those stories, oh God, I had to prepare for this the other day. So Enter Genie, Dick Dowling, who was a Confederate artillery officer in the Civil War, because Houston's the South, Confederacy, the Civil War. It mentions Margaret Mitchell's Gone with the Wind, who Gone with the Wind is about the Civil War in the South. So the Energini, which is everything oil and energy. Some stuff says West Virginia, but the oil rigs, all the oil companies downtown. The first founded oil company in Houston, Dick Dowling was one of the founders. He was one of the founders of the first oil company. The Backyard Barbecue, which is about fires. And every city's had one. Every country from Rome to Egypt's had one. Dick Dowling was a member of the Houston's first fire department, fire brigade, back in the day, because they realized they needed them. Because like the stuff that we're seeing right now going on in Los Angeles, that's a conflagration event. It's a fire that gets out of control. It's the reason why modern firefighting and apparatuses and equipment were invented, and most of them come from French origins. So that, and then the Irishman, the bar imagery. Dick Dowling, he was a bar owner. His bar is mentioned in the book, but Byron spells it wrong. It's called the Bank of Boca. It's still there today. They took a statue down because he's a Confederate officer, and they renamed his school. They renamed the street after him. But at one time, he was the most famous Irishman in Houston, Texas. Houston, Texas was also founded by Irish, but like the book says, the Irish and Scottish ferry traveled together because they were kin. They were so closely related. Doesn't say kin, they were closely related. So in Chicago, you have Grant the Scot, who's also Irish because his grandmother was Irish. So you have Scottish Emerald, Irish Fairy. There's your two you need. You go to Houston, you flip them. The Irish Ruby, the red ruby. And the ruby has connections to the Confederacy. There's I think it's called the Daughters of Confederacy. The one of their symbols is a ruby. The ruby's red. You even see in the painting, you see the colors, the grays. And you look in the Chicago painting contains colors of the Union troops. Some of them wore green. Grant wore blue and gold. You see all the colors in there. You go down to Houston, you see the tans. The tans are walnuts, and I think there's a little bit of blue. But the Confederate uniforms were gray because they ran out of blue dye, and they were mostly white. So they used to dye them with, I think it's walnut husks. So they got that gray color. They'll be walking around in the woods with white clothing, stuff like that. Charleston, I can't talk about. St. Augustine. But you got two primary ferries that you need for most of these puzzles to solve them. The problem is when the puzzle gets more complex, there's more ferries you got to go through.
It seems like New York has a bunch of them. Like, it's just like,
yeah.
Oh,
so many back pages where you're just like, what is going on here?
oh.
Yeah. Well, the book says
my phone is gonna die. Just so y'all know.
All right.
Okay.
The book talks about the first voyage, and then of course the second voyage is everybody else that came from whatever country that was not mentioned. So basically, but you basically like San Francisco. He hid it as Asian, but you have to figure out it's Chinese because of sports, British because of rounders, baseball is your topic. Chicago was Scottish Irish. The topic was the Civil War. And a subtopic of the Civil War is, of course, Grant and Lincoln. You know, they're all even in the verse, and it's Grant's Park. And L is over L's left shoulder was a reference to Lincoln. The Confederacy, because you can't tell that in one story. Plus the Dixie Pixie. Okay, so that's one of the ones you use to solve Chicago. But the key word Dixie is the South. You know, old down in Dixie, Mason-Dixon line stuff. Yeah. So there's a clue right there. Charleston can't talk about. Roanoke, British colony. German because the music, the plays, and a lot of that's connected to. German is the ending for St. Augustine, and so follow the music. And look for musical clues in the German stories that you can associate with Roanoke Island and St. Augustine, Florida. It's as simple as that. Yeah, New York's got a whole bunch of crap. That's why that New York took so long, because I'm like, oh, now I'm into Italian. Once I figured out it was World War II, I went, geez, they're all involved. Yeah, you ever see that board game? I posted that a few years ago, Axis and Allies. You know, it's Russia, Germany, Japan versus America, Great Britain, and I don't remember whoever, Australia. Multiple countries were helping us. That's the whole concept of that board game. Milwaukee, can't talk about that. Montreal, there's too many connections to Mount Royal, and you're looking for a point to find the closest Whitestone south. And I was like, there's too much. I said, the only thing I could figure out was standing member of forest is that cross. It's standing above the forest. The hell did I figure out? What else is left?
I think the Mater Demon is a good page if you're looking for clues for Montreal.
Yeah. And see, yeah, and that one, the Maitre Demon, he used a demon. So the toll trolls, that's a death troll. Behind him, you know, you see the basket for the toll. But there's also folklore of that, you know, pay to toll, pay to boatman, whatever. Behind him is a bomb site, you know, if you look at it hard enough. That's why once you figure it out, it's about war and all that stuff. The toll troll with the horns, he's also, if you look him up in mythology, similar. He's the death troll. Yeah. And
that's why I think Charleston has so much to do with LBJ. Because if you look at the daisy there in the painting, and you look at LBJ, he had run an ad, a famous political ad at the time, where he was, you know, saying his opponent was going to cause nuclear war, and they ran this ad with this girl, and she's plucking the petals from a daisy, and she's going like days like 10, 9, 8, 7, and then it starts counting down, and then shows this like nuclear explosion. And if you look at the wings of the butterfly, they look like mushroom clouds. And so with Charleston, I feel like, you know, he's telling you, look for a place that's militarized, that has a history of the military and war. And like, you know, Fort Moultrie is the epicenter for the first shot of the American Revolution was fired there. The first shot of the Civil War was fired there. You know,
that's I tell you what, I don't even want to say that. I don't even want to give away that clue. Because people know about the Civil War history.
Yeah,
there's a huge clue in there that takes you right to where you need to go. There's a huge clue. All you got to do is read the Civil War history. Pay attention to the people.
I'm in White Point Gardens. It's there.
Because, you know, Mark thinks that, you know, everything's got to, you know, use the clock off Fort Sumter. You're not going to Fort Sumter to dig. You go out there for a shovel. You're going to get a pair of handcuffs. You know, right. Byron's not going to places like that. Don't just think of Fort Sumter. You see the imagery of Fort Sumter, right? Any place named Fort Sumter, anything with Fort Sumter's name on it, anything to do with Fort Sumter, anything to do with, you know in the verse, the date is there. What's that date? That was a very short battle. It was over real quick, right? Yeah. He's giving you major clues.
Connected, you know, like
during
the Civil War, they fired on Fort Sumter from Fort Moultrie.
I just think Moultrie would be too risky for him.
Moultrie's wide open, honestly. Is like
I know, but if you were caught doing that, you'd be in big trouble. That's a national, federal protective area.
Well, I mean, let's name out the places we've had people arrested.
No, besides that, your idea is pretty good. So,
yeah. I mean, the biggest clue is he says, follow the slave ships over the sea.
So, like where do you think it is exactly? Right. Can you tell me? Like on yours?
I will tell you. Yeah, okay. I think the cannons are like your visuals, but the cannons have been moved. So that's the big problem with that whole thing. Is like they moved all the cannons, and so like, you know, it's hard to find where the cannons were. You got to look at the historic aerials and try to line up where they used to be to where, and try to find out where, they're supposed to have you look. But Edwin and Edwina are like, I think the two matching cannons. There's two twin cannons in the lineup. I think there's 8 cannons there. And 2 of them are twins. And I think that's the Edwin and Edwina line that everyone's always trying to figure out. But yeah, like if you look at the imagery of the mask, it has those cannons in there, and they're in the eyes. It's like they're like shaped like bottles, like beer bottles or whatever. But yeah, I think that's where you're supposed to be looking. But the problem is they moved them over like 30, 40 feet or something down the path and reset them on different little stands.
Yeah.
So wherever they were, it's going to be, you're going to have a really hard time pinpointing where they need to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Because,
it's still like it was, it's not impossible, but it's just a lot more difficult.
I think Byron took the steps. People say, oh, he thought these would be solved pretty good. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense if you're trying to sell a treasure hunt book. Because once you've solved them all, if the book was a success,
I think
you don't want to.
I think he wanted like some to go through but to be successful, which it wasn't, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because he was going to do more if it was successful. That's how that works. You know what I mean?
And he'd have to do it harder. I mean, he made this book for longevity. There's nothing easy about it. Everybody needs to stop believing that crap.
It would have been a lot easier if you would have not buried them at all, and if you just found the spot and wrote that letter in, and he just gives it to you instead of digging.
I know. Digging is the worst part, I swear.
Trying to figure out where you got the dig is the worst spot.
The worst.
I don't know. I don't
mind. It's got something to do with the time. It's got
digging is loud. Digging is loud when you don't want to be loud.
It shows you that difficulty. I mean, look at Chicago alone. All the holes they dug, they got to write Byron a letter. He says, I don't know why you didn't find it. He didn't want to tell him you missed something. And,
if Byron was here, it'd be over. I think.
He sent him a Polaroid because at that point, he already knew at that point book sales. I think Byron also got tired of the book. When he ended the mail-in solve in 2004. I don't think his frustration on the part that everything everybody was sending him was.
He usually
why did he end it on a book he was still selling? Because I think he was disappointed, or like he's getting theories and he's going, oh my God, this is nothing even close.
It was too advanced for its time because right now it's popular.
That's exact. Yeah, if I had to go to the library, I would have done all this crap.
It's ahead of its time because now we're interested, but people back then weren't. You know what I mean?
And you got a library on your phone, but you gotta really do don't take what Google AI tells you. You got to check some of this crap out. You got to look at different places. Find, people go in the I went into Wikipedia and I've said, this crap right here is wrong. You need to, and I tell them the entire, blah, 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 blah. This is the actual history of this. I don't know who sent you this crap because this ain't right. I don't remember what it was, but I've done that a few times. And they changed it. Yeah. And I was like, that I know all about that in that history. I don't know who wrote that, but that is wrong. And I said, that is not what happened. I mean, the curveball history. I mean, God, that stuff for Roanoke Island. I was like, so when someone said, that's a baseball, I said, you know what? I never got around to searching that. And I went, okay, baseball, what's in the book? Baseball, curveball, goofball. Any baseball pitchers ever? What do they have to do with Roanoke Island? There's the story. And it's not any, it's like Marcos. I don't. So, dude, it's not Biloxi, Mississippi. It's not Dallas, Texas. It's Roanoke Island. That history, which is what I throw out there. Anybody's on the Facebook page. I mean, if anybody, and we actually still got people watching. If anybody, It's not, we're 12 puzzles on Facebook. You can get notified. We're trying to do 1 or 2 of these a month on the podcast, but you can go to Facebook page and watch this. I've already posted there. But when you look in the book and, people, I'm like, when I post, I don't post nothing. I've taken stuff down because I was like, oh, damn, that was wrong. Because I got it from a wrong site. It looks somewhere else. And then I go, okay, now which one was right? Yeah. That's right. And I'm copying and pasting a lot of stuff that I'm finding off pages. Like today, I was trying to read the actual writings from John White of the Roanoke Colony. Because I was researching what could have been standing on the beach. He writes, as we approach, first thing he sees are natives. And could they be? Yeah, could they be standing? Yes. And okay, there you go.
Yeah, regardless of where it is, there's a beach in that puzzle.
Yeah.
In the Roanoke.
But when you do that search, and it's that's the way that. Oh man, what did his phone must have crapped out? I mean, that's the way this book works. A lot of it's metaphorical. If you don't know what that is, you gotta. Man, how can I do something metaphorical? Metaphorical. And people just have to look it up. It's basically where you're describing it. Okay, so metaphorical. Say you want to describe the Chicago's World's Fair. Chicago World's Fair is not what you're going to say. And Byron does it with wordplay. He says the Chicago World's Fairy, Fairy. Take the Y off, Chicago World's Fair. Is that part of the story? Yeah. But then you look in the story and you see the big black guy. Oh, brother, what the hell's going on here? Quit it. Hang on. Let me lock my front door. He's barking.
All right, cool. Yeah. So I think it's White Point Gardens. I worked across the street from White Point Gardens. I was there when Expedition Unknown was there. I'm in White Point Gardens in Charleston.
Hey, you see Josh Gates' frustration with the show.
I was there. I saw him. I was there.
I talked to Thomas Quinn. They had a big meeting about the secret, and from what he said to me, I don't know if Josh said or not, but they said people we selected to go on the show were the wrong people. The people giving them advice were giving them the wrong advice, and they realized. And you can see it if you watch a lot of episodes. You can see it on Josh's face. Josh was so excited to go to Boston because he's like, "Holy crap!"
Hey, Josh Gates, we are a different team. You can work with us instead.
Yeah,
you work with us. We're better.
No, dude, I send him a message every week. Some of these you're not going to get in there without Josh Gates.
I know things about this, Josh. Well, I've already I checked out some things with him on the email when this all began and shit. So yeah, I got my email answered, so I got it. I got that at least, right?
But you're going to have permission. You're going to have him and his show there.
I mean, I was there. I was looking down there. There's a big conspiracy. They didn't make me sign an NDA. They probably should have asked me because I was all over their shoulder. They noticed.
NDA for what?
I've seen every single spot they checked in Charleston. I've seen everything they did. There's a claim that they only dug one hole. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And they made people sign NDAs for this. That they only dug one hole. They didn't dig one hole. They dig more than one hole in the episode. Talking about they only dug one hole.
It's all
made all over the park, man. They were all over the park for hours. Yeah, I was there watching, seeing every single spot that didn't have a cask. All of the other podcast guys around their bench didn't have nothing. Josh was over there. Josh was doing it himself too. He had a whole team of people doing it, but he was digging like
I hope he watches one of his videos. I mean, I like how excited. I was just watching one where they're looking for some.
All right, I promise you
treasure ship, and they dive down on the bottom, and they found these Arabic coins, and they go down there and they find a few more of them. So this is where I guess this guy they all disappeared, I guess, but they think they sunk. So I mean, he gets excited. I mean, I think he's cool as hell. He's like, forget Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford, Josh Gates. He's like the real Indiana Jones.
The problem is that we all know that bridge got burnt by somebody else. So
yeah,
there's a whole drama that went down that destroyed the bridge between The Secret and that show. George, he likes to ridicule us at when he talks now.
Well, I see he's Josh is changing his. I saw a thing the other day and I was like, I guess Expedition X, like the guy and the girl and
they're actually finding stuff in Egypt now on that show, so they really don't even need us anymore.
I know they're digging up 5,000-year-old mummies. We can't find one cast box.
The thing is, they're paying. The Secret was the biggest show that they've ever had, so that propelled them to get to these big spots where they're in Egypt with the archaeologists and actually finding stuff that's not.
Oh yeah, people love treasure. That's why they do it. That's why news stations do. Mike Wazinski just went out to San Francisco. He had all kinds of camera crews there. Unfortunately, he was unsuccessful.
Well,
and inspected a drawing board, but I went out. I mean, I got to the point where I said, you know what? I'm not coming out here again until I find out everything in the book as far as I can. And then I'll go, damn, I shouldn't have been over there. I should have been over here.
Hey,
I didn't do this. I missed this.
Hey, I got to tell you that I heard something about a documentary coming out. So have you heard about that? I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't want to give them any airtime. Not worth it. But documentary's coming out
on The Secret.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, the one Ben Ason's going to be in as well.
It's run by the other team.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, good luck to them. I mean, they're going to do what they do. We do what they do. We take jabs at them. They take jabs at us. What I always say is you can come here and oh shit, it's like that 5 video you did, dude. I was laughing so hard. It's like, hey, you gotta. It's like any TV show. It's content.
Yeah.
That side over there. Hey, listen, the Secret Podcast of George Ward is what we're talking about. They don't believe you need the book at all. He's done some recently. Over here, I do. That's about the only difference. Whatever content you feel like you're getting, watch that. Watch this. You decide for yourself. I'm past all this bashing, whatever crap back and forth. I mean, George, I've said before, George has a real good production. I mean, he does cool videos. I don't have time for all that. I mean, I got tape. I got tape holding my USB plugs in on this computer right now.
Hey, so man, you got to take out loans. We got to make a TV show. You got good credit?
I got damn good credit. Yeah, I might be leaving soon though.
Where you going?
UAE, work a contract. So I don't know. I'll be back. This will continue, but I don't know here in the near future. Trump's president now. Buddy of mine, he works up in the government. He said, they're freezing a lot of stuff. They're getting rid of a lot of people. They're freezing a lot of overseas contracts. There's basically just way too many people working for the federal government. And so I got to wait to hear back soon. Nice thing is I'll be in Houston.
Nice.
So if I'm there for a few days, I'm going to smack an Uber and go. Yeah. And I've sent, I hope there's people out there I've reached out to that, I'm not a pig. As long as you can go dig it up any place I've told anybody, you can have it. When Josh Gates comes, you just say that somebody in my driveway. That's what he's barking at. You just say where you got it from. We could be like that. A lot of people want to say, I solved everything. It's like, don't be like what happened in Boston. Don't take somebody else's crap and go pretend it's your own. And I'm not saying anything bad about Jason Krupat. He did discover it by whatever means he had to do, but everybody knows that wasn't his theory, and he didn't give any credit to whoever the heck that person was.
The theory is too loose for it to be a solve. Like, it doesn't make sense the way he did it.
Yeah, I mean, Boston is two different times. So Boston was a British colony. You got all the poem verses to was on the 12th, lit by lamplight. These are all, lamplight is a clue. This is before electricity. This is Paul Revere and his ride. Later on in Boston's history, this is a good twist puzzle with the immigration, Byron used the Italian, which came later. Yeah. That was a British colony with Paul Revere. British are coming. Paul Revere took off. The church and the North End Church, that all these were all British people living here at one time, British colonists, before there was any Italians there. So you're using a cross of British, and the book gives you Italian. But when you search to Italian immigration North Boston, you learn about that whole bad story as well. The Langone Park baseball field at home. That's the last part. That's all the baseball was. Has nothing to do about the game of baseball, pitching, nothing. Byron just said, I'm going to bury it behind home plate. When you're standing here, if you're back to the stairs, kind of off to the right in the middle section, because there's a field on one end where the old molasses factory accident happened. Yeah. It's basically a sports park. And basically that's it. And I really don't think you really would have needed the book for that. Once you figured out it was Boston. Some things in the painting really, no one actually found Boston, which was, that was an honest, that wasn't even a mistake. That was too hard that's something only JJP knew.
I've worked on a construction before, right? And people with the excavators, they're not paying attention to what they're doing. You can't tell me the exact location for sure. That's a good way to be like that. That's precise. He was using an excavator. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, I had a discussion on the phone about that today with somebody. They're like, why do you think it's behind the home plate? And I was like,
really near the backstop, in my opinion, like further back.
If you look, okay, so this is what I told the guy today on the phone. If you look at the painting and go, the top is north, the bottom's south, the right side's east, the other side's west. Okay. If you say you took a transparent painting of Boston and you marked the top north, south, the right's east, the left's west, and you went to Boston and you laid that transparent painting over that home plate, and you turned it to where the home plate on her sleeve matched the home plate on the ground underneath it.
Yeah.
And you look at the top of that painting, that way is north. That way is east. It's all lined up. So when you lay a clock over that and you go to the degrees around to 8 o'clock degrees, it's a spot right behind home plate.
Yeah.
And in the painting, he did it exactly like you would be looking down at it if you look down at home plate and went, that's north. Right up next to the third base line is north at that point. And it's exactly like to north, like it is in the painting. Straight up and down. The angle it's even sitting at, that home plate in the painting could have been sitting at any angle.
I think he
put it exactly like it is.
I think the ice rink was involved as well. I think that box represents the ice box, that rink, the skating rink that's right next to the park. Because they talk about metal doors and stuff, metal walls. That thing is metal walls? It's an ice rink, and it's named after a military guy.
I think didn't the molasses factory have metal walls?
Well, yes. So the ice rink is exactly where the molasses factory was, and that's why I believe the box is like exploding out. You even got, if you look close at the back of that painting, there's purple all over the walls.
Yeah.
Right. So look at the cover of the book. You'll see that they took that purple out on the cover, right? But if you look at that on the cover, it's blue. But if you look at the real picture, that molasses is there. I believe that's molasses.
Yeah, that's always something I meant to search for in the book too, because that's right there. That's a major event that happened right there with Paul Revere.
I mean, you can see the walls are blue behind, but there is purple stuff on it, like purple color. And you can't tell me that's the color of molasses, that purple color. And that happened at that park. It has to be significant in his mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because the Langonians are part of it. The Green Tower Lights is Charlestown Prison. That's something that you could have seen if you're time traveled back to Paul Revere. No, this is after Paul Revere. I think that place shut down in 1950. But Charlestown Prison, that had to do with Sacco and Vanzetti. That also had to do with the Langonis. But they had a green tower that had green glass in it, and when they lit it up, that was on execution night. They always did the executions at night.
Yeah.
So that's something. There's a bridge there now, but from Langoni Park, there's a bridge, and then on that opposite side is where Charlestown Prison. And Charlestown Prison was.
The thing is, in '81, the North End had a lot of Italian gangsters taken over when Byron was going around that time.
Oh, hell yeah! They had wasn't Whitey Bulger up in that area?
All up that area, all the gangs. So all the Italian gangs were up there. So it's easy to see how he could pick it, because also Italian people got killed by the molasses. Also, predominantly Italian immigrants got killed by the molasses.
I didn't even get a chance to. Damn, I want to post this on Facebook.
Yeah.
So
it's got to be in there. I mean, and I'll tell you, if you look on the box on the image, there's that castle, and the pattern of the windows. If you look across the street next to the steps, the apartment building has those windows.
Yeah.
So,
I also think this. Yeah. I mean that is.
We know more stuff than he does, so it doesn't make any sense. If he totally solved it, then how it doesn't make sense. I mean, I wish he could come on. I wish he could come on here. He could talk about it, and then we might know.
The Christopher Columbus stuff is what threw him off, and Palancar, when Palancar did his interview with Josh, and he said Christopher Columbus ain't got nothing to do with this. I mean, see when you go back to Mark, I don't think Byron would have had JJP put Christopher Columbus in drag.
Well, the thing is, listen, Christopher Columbus, JJP comes from Columbus, Ohio. He knows when he paints Columbus or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
His
reaction to Josh, I think Josh says, well, Jason said it was Christopher Columbus. And, you could see like automatically, no. Palancar knows it's not. Byron would have told me it's Christopher Columbus.
He went to the Columbus Art School, I believe. So he knows Columbus. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly. I mean, he would have.
And that was a jerk reaction. That was a natural reaction. Usually he's like very calculated, but that was a moment where he slipped and was like, no. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think that's why Byron
he lies, I think. So
I wish Byron was alive. I wish Byron didn't cancel that.
I wish we could get JJP on our show. I wish there was more sharing. You know what I mean? He's kind of kidnapped. You know what I mean? No access to the rest of the community.
I don't think he wants to. I mean, he enjoys being in the secret community. I think, he's selling work. That's part of what he does. He's got to make money too. He can't talk about anything. I'm trying to remember what that was at the meetup where he slipped.
Well, the thing is, I believe, like, if you said something profound to him, he might yield to you. If you said something that really clicked to him, I think he might make another jerk reaction, or even say,
Oh
maybe
yeah,
so.
I can make him do that all day long.
Yeah,
But
so,
I don't want to put him on the spot. You know, he says, you know, when he says I don't want to give anything out of respect to my friend Byron, you know, at least I love the fact that everybody that signed NDAs is still being, you know, they're still holding to it. You know, Ben Ason's donating to Byron's foundation. You know, it's, you know, Ben Ason, you know, still talks to Sandy. You know, all these years later, you know, Byron's been gone for 20 years now.
I
And,
think
you
I'm
know,
gonna.
these people still have his foundation still going, his book still going. You know, his friends still honor what he wanted to do. And I think that's very admirable. And I think they're all kind of happy that, you know, if none of this would have happened, say this was 1988 and somebody found Boston and say 6 of them got found fast. And none of these people would probably be on TV. You know, things have changed so much.
They'd be in the paper. They'd probably be in the paper.
I mean, we're on a computer. I mean, people got to realize, you watch that interview I posted where Byron's talking about downloading books on what we know today is an iPad. You know, when he's doing this before pretty much any of this stuff ever existed.
Yeah.
Talk about stuff in the books about computer. You know, we're on these laptop computers and phones that are this 50 times more powerful than this laptop I'm on right now. You know, technology has changed so much. I mean, Jeff, you know, I was telling those people in the car, they were talking about how Jeff Bezos started at Amazon and stuff. And I said, I know where Jeff Bezos got that idea for selling books. From Byron.
Yeah.
I mean, his iBooks back in the 80s, he had something called iBooks.
Yeah.
Who had ever heard of the term I?
Yeah.
I thrown as in an I for internet. Get
if
the
Byron,
hell out of here.
If Byron was alive, he might have gotten a check for that.
Yeah. Byron was, when he's at that trade show doing that interview, and the lady's like, well, you know, parents are, you know, they're trying to work on their computer, and then the kid's sitting there, and it's like, oh, well, you can take a break and read to the kid.
Yeah, let the kid use the computer.
Basically, you don't. It's funny. It's kind of ironic that this book is not on iBooks, but that's what he's talking about. Not a book in your hand, a book on your computer. And back when he was talking about this, I mean, there's stuff in here where he's talking about computers. And I read this stuff, and it's hard to believe that this writing is from the early 80s. It's like, this is crap that's totally relevant today.
Yeah, yeah.
You'd go, hey,
it feels
that's a 1982 book. You're like, what?
It kind of feels more like a maybe late 90s book. You know what I mean?
The Daydreaming, the Innovator, you know, that he didn't like, but he was one of the smartest dudes.
He just did it too early. If he would have waited in a couple of years, I guess.
Yeah.
In that little period of 81 through 85, all the parks were messed up and nobody cared. So that was the point of him going to these parks, and you know, I mean, part of the point.
I'll tell you what, I laughed at that story about where, you know, how I encourage people to go read that. Go read how he messed up the comic book world when he killed Batman and Robin took his place.
Yeah, you
I
like that
laughing. Right? I said he did. People lost their shit when he did that. We killed Batman. That's the innovator in him. What if, and you can see that, you can just imagine, what if Batman died? And we made Robin cooler.
Yeah, I'll post it again. That was fun to make. That was
and the reaction, the way he was doing comic books. You know, everything is said a certain way.
And also during the height of the Michael Keaton fame, he was doing this. He'll kill Batman at his highest point.
Yeah, but it's a cool twist. And you go,
and the crazy thing is,
with all the DC movies out today, what if someone did that? Batman got killed, and Robin.
That was a fun video to put together.
Everybody would come to see that, but I was like, that's hilarious.
I didn't really thought I got that much love from it, because the thing is, like, I don't really care sometimes. Like, sometimes it's to honor Byron. Sometimes it's not. Like, if we understand his logic, for killing Batman, he's different. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta. It's all psychological. Like, even with Justin, with reading the books, he's knowing what Byron's like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it's like Byron just said, instead of me doing the same broke crap everybody else is doing, he wanted to put his own stamp on stuff.
Yeah.
But when you go back today, like this book I got right here, where they're talking about dinosaurs and all this crap, and you get there. I mean, hell, he's been gone 20 years, but when a book like this is that book when it first came out, Ben sent me this, and then you go, the dude's on the back. This came out last year. Where's this thing got it? And then when you go in the middle, there's a hole. And see, look, they got a Justin, if you worry about still a lot of stuff. Did Byron write about a bunch of stuff he knows? Yeah. Are there clues that help you in the secret in this magazine right here? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's easy to write about what you know. When a salesman goes out there to sell something, you know what he knows? He knows the product he's selling.
Yeah. That's true.
And then you go in there and they're doing a story about this man 20 years later. He's in here because he inspired so many people. That's exactly why.
Have you noticed that there are a lack of pictures of him? There's not that many.
Yeah.
You think Ben has more? Probably.
Oh, that's what we need to do. We need to grill. See, that's how Asen's a lot more. I had this feeling that Ben Asen felt like he was left out of this for a while, but he's one of the most important contributors because Byron left him out, but Byron knew he didn't leave him out and never told him. And I said, you know what? Your photos do have something to do. Just because you weren't part of NDA, that's because he knows and a lot of it was teaming up with Joe Ellen and taking the dolls, or he was just giving it to Ben. But there is a connection. He just said, when I tell him to take a picture of this, he has no idea what that means. But he is a big part of it. And, like when I told him, I said, you took that small businessman photo. There's where the treasure's buried, in my opinion, right there. And there's a reason why he's there. There's a reason why the small businessman, Joe Ellen, made him a lawyer, because the courthouse. There's a reason why that small businessman's called the small businessman, because that's what Big Tom Foley was. He's only famous in New York, Manhattan, Oh no. Everybody's batteries died. See if he comes back. But just want to thank everybody for watching the podcast. Mark left. Justin's battery died. And I think Douglas's battery just died too. We've been out here 3 hours, 32 minutes. We will see you guys next month. We appreciate you watching. Like here on YouTube if you like the content you see, and you can come over to the 12 Puzzles podcast in the 12 Puzzles page of The Secret of Treasure Hunt by Byron Price on Facebook. Y'all have a good night. Thanks for watching.